for us?
Of course. First, we have Carrasco.
Present.
Corrales.
Here.
Mahan.
Here.
Esparza.
Here.
And Foley.
Here.
Thank you.
That's it. So I'm so excited to be chairing this committee. This is my first committee as a council member. So this is an awesome experience, but bear with me as I fumble through some of it, I'm sure. It's not, unlike chairing a school board meeting, it's slightly different because of the public engagement. So if I mess up a little bit, please bear with me and I apologize. I'll do the best I can. I do want to welcome our new council members to this committee, which is Councilmember Carrasco and Councilmember Mahan. So glad that you could join us. And welcome back, Councilmember Esparza and Councilmember Perales. We have a huge agenda today, and we have a lot to accomplish, and I don't want to be here until 10 o'clock tonight because we have a long council meeting tomorrow and we're going to be there till 11 or midnight tomorrow. So I believe in running a very efficient and effective meeting. I have asked staff actually to prepare presentations of around 10 minutes because I know all of us are prepared in the materials and will listen thoughtfully to the discussions that are presented to us and the materials that are presented to us. I'm thoughtful about the time that we spend in committee meetings, and I'm also thoughtful and about the time that staff spends preparing for them. So we have a lot of material, a lot of information, good, interesting things on our agenda for today. And so we're going to keep the presentations shortish, the debate and conversation as long as we need it to, and then we'll move through the agenda. So anyone have any questions? Then let's just jump right in. The first thing is a little bit of a departure. We need to look over the work plan and move an item that is scheduled for our May 24th work plan, move it up to March 22nd. We don't usually move things up. You know, lately we've been moving things back because of COVID and the effects of the pandemic on our staff timing and issues. But in this case, we have another issue that is complementary to the anti-displacement tenant preference ordinance. And so we're going to listen to those together, and we're going to move that up to our March 22nd meeting. So I will entertain a motion from a council member and a second to do that.
Madam Chair, if we have a public comment on that?
We do have a public comment on that item?
Yes.
Okay. Paul Soto.
Good afternoon, Council, and congratulations on your chairship on this committee, Councilwoman Foley.
Thank you.
With regard to this, I want to thank the Council for paying attention. I had suggested that the prioritization of these particular items, that we look at it not only through an equitable lens, but the lens through which people are in need. And this is a perfect example of the council seeing the wisdom in shifting, being nimble, and rather than just directly, okay, well, these are the lines, this is how we have it set up, because we're dealing with situations now where human beings are literally dying. You know, human beings have been over generations, I would say over the past 100 years, this same population has not been able to have any type of footing because of the discriminatory redlining policies and all of the generational deprivation of wealth accumulation that has resulted from that. And many of these symptoms of the economic and social conditions that we see now are indicative of that. COVID only accelerated that. And so with this anti-displacement, I would like it if we can talk about that within the context of these conversations when they are considered by the full council. I think that we are doing a disservice to the community and to ourselves when we do not get comfortable having extremely uncomfortable conversations. I think Eurocentric type thinking in these, with respect to redlining and the wealth deprivation and the social systems that have been able to maintain that. I'm talking Parks and Recreation. I'm talking senior commissions. I'm talking even arts commissions. You know, we really need to start getting comfortable normalizing these conversations. So I look forward to a good council meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to my council colleagues for a motion and any discussion on moving this up in 2 months from the May discussion to the March discussion. Is there-
Move to put anti-displacement from May to March.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Then do we need to do a roll call vote? No.
Ken, if
Yes.
you would like me to.
Yes, we
Yeah,
do.
no, you
Yes.
have to do a roll call vote every time you have an action item so that the public hears from each council member.
Okay, thank you. Then can we take the vote, please?
Yes. First, we have Crosco,
Aye.
Perales,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Esparza,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
The next item is the consent calendar. Is there any discussion from the members of the public specifically related to this consent item? We have one item that will be moving to consent, or that is in consent. Paul Soto, back to you.
Thank you. This is with respect to the felon statues removal, the Arts Commission fiscal work plan. I would like to, hello, is my timer going?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
2 minutes.
well.
Okay, yeah, I just pay attention to the timer though. It's not going yet. So I'll wait till it starts. Okay, good. Thank
There
you.
you go.
Okay, so with respect to the Arts Commission, I really want to thank the council and with especially Councilman Perales for his participation in that particular meeting. I would like it to be first announced here amongst, amongst the Chicano 4, that I'm going to be producing a documentary around this. This is a very pivotal moment in California history and San Jose history, and I'm going to create a documentary. I'm going to pull in the elders that had first made an attempt to have this statue removed back in the 90s. They're going to be first interviewed, and we're going to have meetings around it, and I would really, really like the support of the city on this particular issue. I'm going to be in attendance at the Arts Commission meeting later on this afternoon. And so I need help. I need the help of the city. I'm asking right now formally of the help of my city for assistance with costs that are going to be related to this project. We're going to talk about Manifest Destiny. We're going to talk about Peter Burnett. We're going to talk about Leland Stanford. And surprisingly, I had a conversation this morning with Mayor Gonzalez. And it was for a grant proposal that I'd asked him on another issue. But since I had him on the phone, and he was the one that he okayed the erection of the statue in the first place, he agreed actually to have a conversation and to participate in it. And so we have a buy-in from the mayor that placed it. And so I'm just looking for somebody to reach out to me because I'm going to need some help with it. And this is going to be my love letter, not only back to the community, but to the academic community, to posterity, and for to show how people can non-violently participate in the democratic process and move something as heavy as a 7,000-pound statue. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other public comments? If not, then I'll go
Yes, Madam
to
Chair, we have
council
Brenda.
member.
I'm sorry, we have another public comment.
Oh, we do. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't see that. Okay. Brenda Zendejas. There we go. Brenda, there you go.
Hi, thank you, City Council members and Mayor for allowing us to speak today. I wanted to speak on the Thomas Fallen statue. I know that this will be a matter that would be a public, would have public input, and I wanted to know instead of a statue, we can consider having something that embraces the people, the culture, and not a statue. I think that we shouldn't have statues anymore here in San Jose, and I think we should stop glorifying anybody and embrace more of the culture. I would love the dates to be accessible for the community and make sure that there is flyers or some sort of communication so that the people know about these dates. Thank you guys, and you guys have a good day.
Thank you. Seeing no more public comments, back to my council colleagues and Councilmember Carrasco.
Thank you. Well, I just, I'm glad to support the motion. Well, is there a do we need to make a motion?
We do.
Then I'm gonna go ahead and move this item and hope to get a second.
Second.
Thank you. I'm glad that we're moving this, and I know that this has been to say it's a controversial item is an understatement. There's going to be a lot of different opinions on this. I don't want to get into the debate or the controversy, except to say that that there are a lot of voices that are that I'm glad that a lot of the voices have been heard, have been listened to, and that we're taking them into account. Of course, I represent a community that has been very vocal on this, but I think that the time is right, and I do think that it's long overdue. To Paul Soto's point, I'm glad that he's here today. I'm really grateful that Paul has stuck it out with us, especially during COVID. He was present physically at the different meetings that we had, and now to have him during COVID is really a testament of a sector of San Jose that has historically been shut out. And so to have him be able to voice his truth, our truth, with such power and such sincerity and such honesty is truly a courageous thing. And I think that that we don't always acknowledge that because it's sometimes not very comfortable to listen to. It's sometimes difficult to listen to, but I think that's why it's even that much more important to have him at the mic. The other thing I wanted to say is I'm glad that he's embarking on this project. It's not every day that we get to witness a history that is not necessarily mainstream. And when we are unable to document a non-mainstream history, that's the best and easiest way to erase the history of those who have also contributed to this, what I consider one of the best countries in the world. Truly, other than having some other cultural experiences that I like to expose my children to, I can't think of somewhere else that I'd like to live, because this is where I think my children have an opportunity to be able to express themselves without truly, having persecution like I've seen in other countries. There's still an opportunity here to right a wrong, but we're going to have to intentionally right that wrong because not all of us have equal opportunities. So we have to intentionally, and I think that this is the right time to right that wrong. And what may appear to be a very symbolic gesture, like removing a statue, really translates into how we consciously move on righting those wrongs. So I want to thank Paul Soto for always speaking his truth, because it reflects the truth of a lot of us that have lived similar experiences. Paul and I come from the same community, which he often refers to it as Horseshoe. That's where we grew up in, and I think Paul, we might be the oldies but goodies that are left from Horseshoe, because I don't know how many people will still continue referring to themselves as that. But I want to thank Paul, And I want to thank Carrie and the mayor and the council members for supporting this moment, because it has been a very painful experience for many San Joseans. So thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Carrasco. Would anyone else like to speak on this? If not, then let's vote.
Okay, we have Carrasco,
Aye.
Perales,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Esparza,
Yes.
and Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving on to the next item, which is the construction crane height guidance study. Do we have a presentation?
Actually, Madam Chair, I think the next.
Or did I get that backwards? It's the Team San Jose one.
San Jose, yeah, our special guests from Team San Jose are here, so we put them first.
Great. Let's have them then. Is John LaFortune here?
Yeah. Hi, I'll just kick it off. Hi, good afternoon, committee. Good afternoon to the new committee members. Welcome. Just by way of background, my name is Carrie Adams Hapner. I'm the director of the Office of Cultural Affairs, deputy director of the Office of Economic Development, and I manage the Team San Jose contract on behalf of the city manager's office. I am also an advisory member to the Team San Jose board, along with Councilmember Perales, who represents the council. And so per our contract with Team San Jose, we present updates to this committee on a semi-annual basis. But when we presented back in September, just because of COVID and because all the impacts of COVID on our convention and cultural facilities and the activities of the Convention and Visitor Bureau, the committee asked for us to come back, in another quarter. So a couple months later, we're here with you again. So this is what was a little bit out of our normal schedule, but we just want to keep you posted on a very iterative basis because everything's so fluid right now. So I'm going to keep it very brief. I'm going to turn it over to John LaFortune, who is the leader at the helm of Team San Jose right now, and he can introduce his team, and then they're going to take it away.
Thank you very much, Terry. We're going to take it away and be brief and thorough. And Ben, you have the slide deck. We could start off with that. My name is John LaFortune. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Team San Jose. And I think Ihab, you have this, who's our Chief Financial Officer.
Yes, thank you, John. My name is Ihab Sabri. I'm the CFO of Team San Jose. I'm going to be presenting year-to-date December financial performance. So as we can see, due to COVID, we don't have really much information in the estimated direct visitor spending. Future hotel room nights is 39,000 room nights compared to a budget or a goal of 54,000 room nights. And we have a shortfall of 14,407 room nights. That represents 73% of our year-to-date goal. The goal for the year, for the annual goal is 119,821 room nights. At this point, we only achieved 33% of the annual goal. And again, that's due to COVID and basically the closure of the facilities. And we've been closed since March of 2020. And we don't have any business in the books until the end of the fiscal year, which is June 2021. There is no occupancy in the theaters at the moment, has been for a while. Gross operating revenues, 2.7 million. Year-to-date goal is 2.8. So we have a shortfall of 114,000. That's basically 96% of the year-to-date goal. The annual goal is almost $30 million. We're only at 9% of that annual goal. We're nowhere actually overachieving that $30 million, again, because of COVID. Gross operating results is a loss of $1.3 million compared to a budget of $2.2 million loss. And we're ahead of that goal by 931,000. That's 141% of the annual goal, of the year-to-date goal, I'm sorry. And customer satisfaction, we don't have any information, again, due to COVID and closure of the facilities. Do you have, anybody has any question for me? Okay, let's move to the next slide.
Okay, this is Ben Rashke, Vice President of Research and Strategic Development. Thank you, council members. We're going to jump around the larger deck we gave you to try and keep this 10 minutes just in interest of time. Just wanted to give a quick update on sort of our status of efforts around reopening for future meetings. This map is illustrative of the fact that California to date is the only state remaining in the U.S. without any guidelines for the opening of meetings. We have, you can see on it, Washington, Michigan, and Vermont are on temporary pauses due to the winter surge, but they do have guidelines published. Where this plays into effect for us is, we have a long lead time to book meetings into the center. Without guidelines established to tell us what a path to reopening would look like as we progress through vaccine distribution and hopefully into better times, we're at a significant disadvantage compared to other states in terms of competing for business to be able to book it into the city. And then anything the state would issue from a guideline perspective, of course, would have to also be signed off on the county level to allow us to book those meetings in here. So we mentioned this at the last meeting. We're still heavily engaged with Cal Travel in a convention center coalition with the largest convention centers and cities in the state to work with the governor's office towards reissuing guidelines. However, it's all like a lot of things with the pandemic. It's been a case of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Every time some momentum happens, we've encountered surges that have put items on pause. We're continuing to move forward to try to secure those guidelines, but as they come down from the state, then we will need to pivot to working with the county to ensure that they're okay with the state's guidelines, and then that will allow us to move closer. We remain ready to welcome people back to the convention center. Our operations team has worked diligently on making sure it's a safe environment once it's welcome to have people back in. And we're just continuing our efforts with our partners from around the state to get those guidelines secured. John?
Great, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben. And again, John LaFortune, COO of Team San Jose. And just a quick operations update. We continue to use South Hall for our unhoused population around the city. We extended this through actually May. We just extended it, not April, but to May, through May 2021. And it's consistently full at about 280 beds per night. During this time since April, we've done food preparation and delivery. So we've done close to 700,000 meals to date. That's breakfast, lunch, and a hot dinner. And that's usually around 12 locations throughout Santa Clara County we deliver to also. We're one of the 3 organizations with the city that was awarded the bid, started February 1st, where we have 3 contracts ahead of us all the way through the end of the year if need be. So we do have that. And what I thought would be great with the one of 3 organizations to win that bid, we have decreased in meals. Now we're about 10,000 per week, 10, 11,000 per week. And at our peak in June, we were at 22,000 per week. And then we've kind of decreased that whole time. So the more meals, the better for us. We don't make a lot of money on the meals, but at least we get people back to work, which is fantastic in the area. And last, vaccination site. We've worked with the city to try to get be a vaccination site at the convention center. And we've gone through a lot of information given to the city, but it's really up to the county. And the county will decide if we become a vaccination site at the convention center. And hopefully we do, because we'd love to give back to the community a little more. Any questions?
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Matthew Martinucci. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Destination Services for Team San Jose. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Very brief group sales update. So with the January results, for the month of January, we were at 97% of our goal, which was in room nights, 8,597 room nights versus the goal of 8,836. And these goals, just so everyone is clear, this is bookings for at any point in the future. So these are not rooms that we're consuming now, but this is what we're booking now for either this month, next month, or really it's further down the road, as we've mentioned earlier. The fiscal year to date performance, we are at 75% of our goal. So that's 47,559 room nights versus the goal of 62,755. So one of the things we've experienced since COVID has been a significant reduction in lead volume. So for January, we have seen a slight uptick. January, we received 26 leads. Now that compares to 103 last year. So that's down 75%, but it is the highest number we've seen since COVID. I'm also very happy to tell you today, it's only February 22nd, but we have seen 30 leads come in the month of February. So it's too early to call it a trend, but we are seeing a slight uptick right now in lead volume, and we certainly hope that that will continue. For the fiscal year to date through January, we were at 113 leads versus 720 last year. So that's 84% down. Next slide, please, Ben. So latest customer trends. Customers are slow to sign contracts. There is a little bit more optimism right now, but they're still being extremely cautious. We have seen a couple of groups that we have under contract for this fall significantly downsize the scope of their programs, and we've worked with them as best we can to, in good faith, to lower their liability and shrink the space that they're using, their footprint. And two examples of that are Zoom and ARM. And then we are actually trying to capture more the virtual and hybrid programs, and including our on-property provider, LMG, earlier on in conversations with customers to try to capture that business. In light of the reduction in lead volume that we've seen, we have a proactive solicitation plan in place. And really what we're trying to do is just make sure that we're positioned to capture demand as it increases, so that San Jose can recover very quickly from COVID. So we're looking at continuing to diversify our market segmentation. And what that means is, aside from the corporate customers that we all know and love, we need some more associations, we need some more religious, some cultural events, really a lot of good sporting events. And so really just have a very diverse portfolio of customers. In the month of January, we were able to capture or establish 56 new customer connections towards that goal. 8 of those are fully qualified, and we have some extremely exciting leads directly as a result of this effort. One of them is a confidential group for January of 22, which is more than 10,000 room nights, and that would be leaving another city, coming to San Jose. So we're going to protect the identity of that customer until we can tell you we have a signed contract. And then we also have 2 opportunities that together are worth 17,000 rooms for July of 2023. So, we're looking to bring as many with good occupancy. A lot of good things happen, and that's what our team's working towards. So thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, council, staff, and all joining today. For the record, I am Laura Shimolewski, VP Marketing and Communications for Team San Jose. Next slide, please, Ben. I will quickly walk you through updates on our paid, owned, and earned media efforts for destination marketing. So as you know, our city is still under travel restrictions with quarantines, and our hotels are still not able to open for leisure travel. So our paid media efforts are still paused. Our board of directors did approve reserve funds for marketing, for destination marketing, and as soon as the health order allows it. Notably, the plan will have an all leisure focus with business travel also getting attention as soon as it resumes, and will target in-state markets focusing on travel intent and travelers showing a digital intent to travel soon. This is to maximize our return on investment. Next slide, please, Ben. Thank you. The campaign will feature creative content designed by local artists. Here is an example featuring Angie Chua from Bobo Designs, and this is a featured ad in Visit California's official visitor guide. Next slide, please. Thanks, Ben. Our owned media continues to focus on supporting our local businesses and growing our audiences during this time. Next slide, please, Ben. Here are examples from our website, from our email campaigns. Really quickly, the top line of this says 750,000. Unfortunately, it should say 75,000, but the good news is it's actually 80,000 subscribers since we made this slide. Next slide, please. And social media. Quick note here, this is all under the hashtag San Jose Love campaign, which has gone viral and is doing very well. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next slide, please, Ben. Finally, through earned media. Since we last met, we placed 43 stories and reached 77 million unique viewers talking about San Jose for an estimated ad value of $376,000. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I think we'll take questions after we go to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. And let's turn to the community. And I see Paul Soto has his hand raised.
Yes, thank you for that acknowledgement, Councilwoman Carrasco. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. Let me give you an example. I read through all of this information explicitly, and one thing that caught my attention is it says here, major themes in pitches involved alfresco dining. We have alfresco dining as a result of Chicanos and Latinos dying in exponential numbers on the east side of this city. The reason why people want and are pushing Scott Neese and the police department to really, really open up downtown and make these sweeps downtown is because they were the first ones to be vaccinated. The percentages of Anglos in this city, affluent Anglos, in comparison to the Latinos, that disparity is extremely wide. We have alfresco dining because human beings were dying. They were literally losing their lives. Okay, and now that you guys are confident enough to come to this city and start dining, you're using the fact of alfresco dining in your marketing. But why do we have alfresco dining? Because of human beings dying. See, that right there, that's a part of the inhumanity that's why you guys were real quickly. No, let's study this. This dude said that California is the only state with allowing no meetings or no guidelines for the reintroduction of meetings. I'll give you one reason why that is. Human beings are dying, and I'm a part of the race of those people. So, I mean, the kind of like just complete cognitive dissonance that people can overcome by coming to these meetings and thinking that you're really being nice and humane and just and being methodical about what you're doing. I've played chess before, and I see exactly all these chess pieces being put in line and in place, and Scott Neese is one of the main promoters of that. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. Beekman.
Hi, happy Monday. Happy end of February to everyone. Some interesting words from Paul Soto. Thank you. For myself, I'm just learning, being so far behind in life. I'm just learning the importance of HVAC systems in schools and what the HVAC system will mean to school districts in the next few months. And, with your Team San Jose, South Hall issues and, with other convention center issues, I just wanted to remind the importance of HVAC preparation, how much that can help with the COVID process for our schools at this time, and that our schools there can't be a massive push towards getting everybody into the schools. It has to be a very slow process.
Mr.
And
Beekman, we're here to talk about Team San Jose, not our schools. Can you?
Totally understand. I was going to totally try to bring it back, and I'm able to connect it to how South Hall uses the HVAC systems, and there's a need for the HVAC systems. And I guess I suppose a thank you that that system is in place, and just a gratefulness for what we're doing, and what to conclude and comment on Paul Soto's words. Just that we are really looking after each other and not pressuring each other, and just finding really decent practices at this time is important for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning back to the committee and Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to staff and the Team San Jose staff. Certainly have a lot of individuals out of work that I know we're eager to try and see if we can't have a plan to get them back. And in regards to the guidelines, I wanted to see, I know that clearly, right, we need to be cautious, but I also think we need to be prepared. And so I want to see if there's any help that we've been providing on the city's end, as far as with our intergovernmental relations team, on ensuring that we can get at least the guidelines worked on and in place, so that we have an idea on how to prepare once we start to see some of the reopening later this year. So I don't know if somebody from staff can answer that, maybe Carrie.
Sure, I'll start, and I'll also defer to Kim Wallish. So we have been working, so as we all know, the county really guides our county health orders, right? So this is really something that we've worked through our Emergency Operations Center, our EOC director, and the relationship between the city and the county. So I know that Team San Jose, they're also part of a statewide advocacy network with other managers of convention centers. And they're looking at how to work with the governor's office about having guidelines be more explicit, and the statewide orders for conventions, so that obviously, as we all know, we need to plan in advance, right? Convention management and convention meetings, scheduling and planning is everything. So there's been a lot of statewide efforts. So, but what we were told through Team San Jose is we really needed to work at it at the county level. So we did approach the county a couple of months ago through the EOC, and Kim can speak to this in more detail. But I think at that time, really the focus was just, that was when we were really anticipating like the winter surge, and just they were just so focused on controlling things that really thinking about mass gatherings was not their immediate priority. And Kim, you may want to elaborate on that further if you have any additional information you wanted to share.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I had to take a call while right after the presentation ended, so I'm not quite sure.
Oh, so I'm sorry, Kim. The question was from Councilmember Perales, was about how can the city help Team San Jose in getting guidelines for mass gatherings more explicit at the county level. That was, if I'm summarizing it correctly, council member, let me know. But I think that's at the heart of your question.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of saying what the conversations were with the county when we routed this question up through our city EOC. And essentially is at that time, that was when we were experiencing the winter surge, and they just were not in a place to start giving out guidelines in regards to mass gatherings at that time.
Yeah, that's true. I think, we have quite a list of items we're working with on the county, and we can certainly maybe reopen the conversation and continue to express concern about this. I mean, it's clearly something that would be us having influence at the state level. But you're right, Carrie, it's been a number of months, so maybe it's time to revisit the conversation again. See if we can get their support.
Yeah.
Anything else, Councilmember Perales?
Yeah, thank you. I just, appreciate that. I obviously understand the importance of again, what our Team San Jose, staff is looking for. And the idea of guidelines is really just going to be able to help prepare everybody on how we can get back into business. And so I think without the guidelines, certainly everybody is waiting to see how we might best prepare. And I think that's at a minimum what we should be advocating that happens. Otherwise, I do appreciate the update, and I'll move approval.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Great. Thank you. Anything else, Councilmember Perales? Then Councilmember Mahan.
Yeah, I'll just be quick. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt, excited to be on the committee, new here, obviously. Just to build on Councilmember Perales' question, it seems to me there may be an opportunity over the next 6 months or so where our weather will be better, case counts hopefully will continue to decline, we will not be ready to do indoor gatherings, large gatherings again, but are we positioned in any way to take advantage of what might be an opportunity around outdoor gatherings specifically? And it may be the same answer as we need guidance from the county, fine, but would it make sense for us to have Team San Jose articulate the kinds of opportunities that might be available and get that in front of the county as a specific example of something we'd like guidance on sooner than a more robust policy? And if I'm barking up the wrong tree there, let me know. It just seems like there might be this window where outdoor is an opportunity while indoor still isn't.
I think that's a great question. I think you're right. We are at the right time. I think that question pertains not only to our convention business and the opportunities there, but also other types of cultural activities, not just in the downtown, but throughout the city, right? And our parks and our gathering spaces. This is something that I know this is not unique to San Jose. This is what we're all dealing with around the world. So a lot of communities have figured out some systems, and it might be time to re-engage the county on what the opportunities going forward are, especially given that people have increased percentage of vaccinations, right? So, but event organizers that I spoke to earlier, whether you're a convention manager, a meeting manager, or a cultural organizer, they need advanced planning, right? They need to engage their own clientele, their own communities, those people that would be attending. They need to market the business. So there's a lot of advanced planning that needs to take place. So that's why Team San Jose has been part of this network. But I know there are a lot of other advocacy organizations, whether it's happening at the state or national organization, but it's maybe something we should be taking up at the local level. So thank you for bringing these questions up.
Sure, thanks. And that's all I had, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Carrasco.
Thank you. Could you, there was a really pretty brochure by local artist. Could you put that up? And is there any way for you to enlarge it?
1 second. Let me get something that's a little easier to zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And council member, hi, it's Laura Shimaluski. I just wanted to let you know that Angie actually designed the entire ad. So even everything from both corners, all sides, including copy approval. So the whole thing was done by Angie Chua.
Okay, we're gonna put it up.
There you go. So
Oh, and yeah. Those who have worked with my office, I usually, the feedback I usually give is, make it really, friendly to the viewer. I tend to learn through visuals more so than someone that's speaking at me, or if you make me read a lot, I just lose the pleasure of the experience sometimes. And especially if you're trying to pull me in. So this to me is very pleasurable when I see it. And when we're trying to attract people, when I'm trying to convince my children to go somewhere, I look for really fun things to do to convince them to go where I want to go. Yeah, that's just my method for those parents out there who are going to be raising teenagers soon. But one of the things I really want to point out to you is there's some beautiful imagery here. The colors are great, and almost all these places that you've pointed out here, I've been to them. I've grown up around them. My team goes to them quite a bit. These are just, I consider them like our places, and so it's nice that you're featuring them. But as I look closer, there is, one of the beauties of San Jose, and one of the reasons why, in spite of the high cost of living and as difficult as it's getting, smack in the middle of Silicon Valley, I stay, and I'm trying to figure out how to get my children to stay, 3 teenagers, is because of the beauty of the diversity of the people here. But when I see here the brochure, my entire Latino community is missing. And so this isn't the first time that I've seen a brochure go out where the entire east side of San Jose is cut out. And one of the things that I have really worked hard over the past 7 years since I got into office was to really change the narrative of what the east side, the narrative that was written for us. And the east side is really a beautiful place for those who decide that they want to venture into the east side. And so we need to make sure that we change that narrative, even in what we put out or what we choose not to put out. And when we don't put it out there, that's still a narrative that we're painting out there. So I just want to put that out there for you, because this is a marketing tool. And so if I were to look at this, it would send a very clear message that Latinos don't live in San Jose, that we don't have a very rich history of Latino foods and culture, art, a deep, 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 deep rooted history, and that it is probably primarily white and Asian. And out of all the pieces that I see here, it's heavily Asian, which is wonderful, because all my children have grown up on Asian cultures and the richness of their foods and everything else that the Asian culture has to offer. So I'm so glad that we live here. But just as rich as the Asian culture is, Latino culture, Mexicano culture is just as beautiful. And so I'm putting it out there because I want to know how we can change that. And I'd like to see how we can make sure to be inclusive and be proud of that Mexicano and Latino influence that is San Jose. And in fact, Latino culture, Mexicano culture specifically, were the very first, and I'm not going to say settlers because we didn't settle. We weren't settlers. We were the first to actually exist here before people settled upon and on top of us. So, uh, I'm going to make a request that before things continue to go out, that we make sure that it goes in there. So I'm going to just point out a couple of things. If you were to go out to the east side and there was a historian that'd be interested in understanding how the Chicano movement even began, the Chicano movement started with a very interesting individual who took up some occupancy for some time on the east side of San Jose by the name of Cesar Chavez. But Cesar Chavez has a very interesting beginning himself. And that was with a little tiny group of 1,500 Filipinos who are now going to have a park named after them in my district, District 5. And so to be able to market that or not market it, I think is a missed opportunity. To be able to invite the world of scholars into our backyard, I think is a marketing tool in and of itself. And you know, I didn't learn that until I went to UC Santa Barbara. I had to leave San Jose to learn about that. And so Cesar Chavez's house still stands. The Mexican Heritage Plaza sits on hallowed, sacred, blessed land, which was the site of, and Councilmember Esparza, I think, can school us better than anyone else because her parents were a part of that movement. And so we need to be able to pull that out. I'm going to give you another one. You know, in the Asian countries, Japan in particular, my 17-year-old son just schooled me on this. There's a huge lowrider movement. So LA birthed it. We put it in an international platform, Famous King and Story. I'm always going to keep saying that, Famous King and Story. Again, for the historian, this is a big deal. For the Japanese tourist, big deal. Because that is where the lowrider was able to reach a whole different platform that not even LA, you know, I'm a little competitive with LA, not even LA was able to do. But look it up. In Japan, huge, huge deal. You know, you'd swear that they popped right out of the east side of San Jose. So that's one. Mayfair. Mayfair has a very famous skateboarding park. Proud to let you know that I have a chief of staff who in his teen years was instrumental in making sure that San Jose had skateboarding parks. Well, we have a very famous skateboarder who is now an extremely wealthy gentleman who has a collab with Vans and does all kinds of stuff in terms of building skateboards, and now has a van collection and socks and all kinds of stuff. But he skateboarded in the Mayfair area, and we have some very famous skateboarders, professional skateboarders that come to this teeny weeny little skateboard park right smack in the middle of Mayfair. Other people know it as one of the most highly impacted gang hotspots. Other people know it as the famous little skateboard park in the middle of an unknown little neighborhood. So I'm putting it out there because in one of the most established communities in the city of San Jose, we have a very, very, very rich history that I'd like to see reflected. And these are iconic spots that are not moments that are defined by fashion or flash in the pan temporary, instances that are going to close down. They've been there for decades, 40, 50, 60 years in the making. And I would love to be able to see that and showcase it. There's so much there. And we just have to make sure that we really do profile it somewhere. And like Paul Soto, who is embarking on this great project to showcase the history, we have to be able to memorialize it in our marketing tools and let the world know what San Jose has. It's not just a coffee shop, which is great. I love the coffee shops. Let's go and get a great coffee. But what about the history that is embedded in our city that maybe people would love to go see? Maybe a tour of the murals that are popping up everywhere, and we can go see the murals all around downtown. But what about on the east side? They've been there for decades. Unfortunately, one that was painted over, but we have so many murals out there that tell a story of people who are no longer with us, but they helped build this city. So anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that we added that, and I hope that I can see some of that in some of these tools in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you. I actually wanted to say the same thing, and thank you for being so eloquent, Councilmember Carrasco. You know, San Jose has the largest Latino community in Northern California. You wouldn't know that to look at this. And we have a lot of beauty and culture and activities, and Councilmember Carrasco just talked about Plata Arroyo Skate Park, and you know, but you wouldn't know any of those things to look at this. And if I'm planning on a staycation and bringing, you know, some teenagers with me, and I'm looking for some cool stuff to do, they're here. Those things are here, and they're in all parts of the city. And you know, again, to see us be erased from the marketing of our city is shocking to me. And I would hope that that would change moving forward. Thank you.
May I, hi, this is Laura again. May I please address the council members?
Sure, of course.
Questions. First, thank you so very much. Telling the story of San Jose is incredibly difficult because it is so vast and filled with so many wonderful things and so much wonderful history and so many wonderful stories. We're honored at Team San Jose that we get to be, play a small part in it. I would just like to thank you so very much, and to explain that this is the first of a series of ads featuring local artists. The artists curate the content for their ads. However, that said, we will make sure moving forward that that artists continue to embrace, especially the things you pointed out. And I look forward to sharing those with you all very soon. And again, thank you very much. And I look forward to the discourse and the dialogue that comes from this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was a comment that I had meant to include, which is, again, if I'm planning my staycation, if I'm going to learn about other cities, you know, San Jose is the birth of a civil rights movement, right? We have a lot of cultures and places for people to go to events and spend their money and see beautiful parts of the entire city. So I just wanted to add that point that there's a lot of history combined with things to do that I hope would be included in the next iteration. Thanks.
Great. Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. And I think it's helpful. Thank you, Laura, for describing sort of that this is maybe one of many that will kind of weave together to show the fabric of our city. I think one of the things that our city lacks, because we're not necessarily a tourist destination, is something that major cities have, which are tours. And Laura, as you know, you spent several hours with me as I toured you around the city of San Jose, and really incorporate all of the wonderful history. You know, I would like to say even the many different sides, but quite frankly, even in a 4-hour tour of the city, we didn't touch West San Jose, South San Jose. You need a day to get around the entire city and to really to sort of see that. So I can respect that it's going to be impossible to try and incorporate, all that is truly, exciting about our city into a small ad like this. But I do think that if indeed the idea is to sort of say, hey, we want to have these different elements, I do think that as my colleagues pointed out, the hope would be, right, that some of the next artists are incorporated, some of those other areas of San Jose, some of the other stories, and then hopefully what we see, what gets woven together is a nice complete picture. I don't know, you at least I didn't hear it until you responded here, but I didn't hear that described in the beginning. Sort of what is the end result of this, this marketing here that you just stated that this is the beginning. So what is the end result?
Thank you, council member. Sorry, it took me a minute to unmute myself. This particularly, it was to focus on our small businesses that were open and that could be accessed now to try and help them since our hotels are closed. So as you know, we're not only a venue management company, but we're also the destination marketing organization tasked to fill our hotels and grow the TOT as best we can. So with this and this artist series, we're hoping to give artists a place, local artists, where they can showcase their San Jose in an effort to show how special and how diverse San Jose is, to drive overnight stays, contribute to the TOT, and grow the pots of money that the TOT contributes to. That's the full scope of what we hope to accomplish. Is that helpful? I hope so.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And I think one way we can be helpful to you, would be to help identify some local artists that might actually be able to help paint a picture, right, from some of these other areas of the city, like a local artist that can help tell a story from the east side, as Councilmember Carrasco pointed out. And certainly we have those artists. So I think that's one of the things that we can do to help you, would be to just raise up some names for you. And I'm happy to do that offline. I'll encourage my colleagues to do the same, right? That way, hopefully we can see one of these artists and maybe they're going to be able to bring in that perspective that is not your tradition. I mean, when you look at this is really focused within the core of the city. It goes out, right, just a little bit to the Rose Garden and then to Little Saigon area, but it's pretty compacted. And even in the core of the city, right, clearly you could probably do 100 of these different, marketing pieces. But that's one way I think that we can help you. And if you haven't already identified individual artists like that within the Chicano Latino community, or specifically those that maybe have, because you could be in the Chicano Latino community and still sort of be focused in the downtown core. As we know, we have plenty of artists. So it would be somebody, I think, that might have a broader perspective on some of the other parts of the city. So I'll encourage my colleagues to do the same, maybe to connect with you offline and help identify some of those artists.
Thank you so very much.
Okay, there are two more council members who'd like to speak. I'd like to bring this conversation to a close so we can move on to the next one. So Councilmember Esparza and then Councilmember Carrasco.
Thank you. I'll appreciate that. I'll be brief. I do not cut out our Latino community, please. Okay. I mean, and Latinos are in the downtown core, and there's Berryessa, there's Little Saigon, which is the east side. And if we're trying to generate business money for businesses, we have Plaza Garibaldi on Santa Clara Street, where they make incredible food and have mariachi playing outside. We have Tropicana at King and Story. We have a great history of panaderias, of Mexican bakeries, who all over the city. I know we all have our spots. My favorite's in the east side, but I won't say which because we'll start a little war. But I'm pointing that out because we have been erased. So whether it's just the downtown core, which this actually includes Berryessa and Little Saigon, So it's not just the downtown core, is do not erase us. Please hear that. And there are many, many, many Latino-owned businesses throughout our city that need our help as much as anybody else. And so that's what we're saying. Please hear it. Please act on it. There are, and it's a strange thing to have to fight for that here in San Jose, because when you go to other parts of the state, they are like really impressed with San Jose. They know about all these cool things happening in the city that apparently we don't brag about ourselves. Whether it's our history, whether it's our culture, whether it's our food, whether it's our music or our art, we've just been erased from the city's own marketing materials. Thank you.
Councilmember Carrasco.
So and now I'm going to just echo what Councilmember Esparza said, because some of them may be, as I look at the brochure even more so, some of them may be exclusive to the core. I hadn't noticed that because what I was looking at was Barry Essa. I was looking at the flea market. I was looking at Little Saigon. None of it really screamed core to me. What screamed to me was just, hey, where am I? You know, I was just looking at the absence of the Latino community, and I was looking at the absence of the east side of San Jose. And if you're going to look at a staycation, so I don't know if this is being marketed to the residents themselves or the regional area. But if you're doing that, then I would say, even doing some sort of a treasure hunt or a scavenger hunt, something fun like that might be interesting. Where is, the blue face? The blue face happens to be, by the way, at the Mexican Heritage Plaza inside the plaza. And so, you can say, where is, the oldest street in the city? By the way, that happens to be Alum Rock, that leads to the oldest park in the state of California. We're about to celebrate the 150 years of its establishment. So, where is, and as Councilmember Esparza just noted, I didn't know anything about the famous little skateboard park until my son, the 17-year-old, mentioned it to me because he was on a skateboard blog. And so he was on it with international students. And this is when he was 15. So 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, actually, he mentioned it to me. And was asking me, do you know about this little skateboard park that happens to be, I think it's in your district, the district that you represent. And I'm like, oh, I have no idea. I don't know anything about that. And so I didn't even know about it until he saw it on an international blog of skateboarders. And that says to me that we haven't been marketing it even to our own folks, because I was completely oblivious to it until my teenage son told me about it, who heard it from international skateboarders. So I just think that we can do, this is great. I think it's a good start. I think it gives us a place to launch from, and there is so much to talk about. But I think that that we haven't truly grasped the beauty of San Jose and bragged about it nearly enough. And I think that just the last thing I'm going to say is I really hope that you can hear what Councilmember Esparza said. And it comes down to just very simply, we're just nowhere there. There's no representation of a Latino community at all. And whether you want to, I see this, it takes up an entire corner where it's asking for you to go pick up your art supplies at a little store. I don't know where it is exactly, but at the same time, I could be saying, pick up your folklorico dresses at Tropicana, or pick up your spices at the little mercado on Story Road. I mean, we could be supporting all kinds of other businesses that are also hurting just as much. So I just think that there is room to support the diversity that is San Jose, I love San Jose. I may have even chosen to put up the Mexican Heritage Plaza Tower versus Sharkey, because I don't think Sharkey needs as much advertisement as the small businesses on the east side. So that's just my opinion. But I think that there is room for a Latino influence versus leaving us out completely. So okay, I'll leave it at that. But thank you so much for listening.
May I, this is Carrie. I just want to real quickly.
Carrie, just briefly, if you could just wrap it up, please.
I'm going to wrap it up really quickly and just say thank you for all this input. I just want to emphasize that this is one piece that is part of a much larger organization's set of very comprehensive strategies. We have a very good team that is very interested in uplifting all communities, all parts of this very diverse city. So I really just want to emphasize that to you. I see that this was one thing that you guys saw that is not to tell the entire story of San Jose, but it's the first of the series. But all of your input is very well taken, and we take it to heart. And I know that this team and this marketing team really want to do their best to serve all of San Jose and make sure that all communities are benefiting from the work that they do. So thank you. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say that I really appreciate Councilmember Carrasco, Esparza, and Perales for bringing up that issue. It is important that we represent all aspects of the cultural influences within the city of San Jose. And I think the message was loud and clear that we need to include that in the next few marketing pieces that come out. So I appreciate the discussion and the dialogue. So with that, let's vote.
Okay, we have a Carrasco.
Aye.
Perales.
Aye.
Mahan.
Aye.
Barza.
Yes.
And Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
And thank you to Team San Jose for making that presentation. I hope that the convention pandemic decreases and that we're able to get the convention back and running in 6 months or so, whenever it's safe to do so. Moving on to the next item, which is the construction crane height guidance policy. We have a presentation. So let's have the presentation. Then we'll go to the public for comments, and then we'll come back to council for questions.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Judy Ross, the Assistant Director of Aviation here at the airport. And with me today includes Drew Niemeyer, who's our Deputy Director of Planning and Development, and Ryan Sheelan, our airport planner. And today I'll present to you the study on the construction crane height guidance. Next slide. 2 years ago, the city, along with several stakeholders, performed the Downtown Airspace and Development Capacity Study to review the one engine and operable, what we call OEI airspace surface, which is the surface that the city had the ability to make decisions. The intent of the study was to find flexibility to allow additional permanent building height in the downtown and the Diridon Station areas. The study was completed in early 2019, with the City Council adopting the new building height limits based on what we call TERPs. And the TERPs are defined as the multiple instrument approach and departure airspace surfaces that the FAA has the regulatory responsibility. In addition to the action to protect the TERP surfaces, the council directed staff to develop a construction crane guidelines to minimize air service impacts during the construction of the now new taller buildings. As you can see in the lower right-hand picture, the north end of downtown area is just over 1 mile from the runway end, directly on the extended runway center lines. And due to that close proximity, temporary construction cranes enter into the TERP surfaces, which impacts the approach and departure procedures at the airport. And the intent of the construction crane guidance study was to minimize the impacts to air service while trying to maximize temporary construction crane heights in the downtown and the Diridon area. And I'd like to note that throughout the development of the construction crane guidance and the study, there were stakeholder engagement and feedback in 3 primary ways. One, the public meetings with the development community via the PBCE Construction and Developers Roundtable. And also staff met with several individual developers upon their request. And secondly, we met with the FAA to discuss what were some opportunities to work together to further allow construction crane height in the critical areas. And thirdly, the staff met with the major air carriers and Airlines for America, which is the association that represents the major air carriers, and they supported the efforts to address the construction cranes. The FAA has an airspace obstacle analysis process which reviews the Part 77 and TERPS procedures. The Part 77 is a safety notification surface that requires the submittal of what they call a Form 7460. And the TERPS review is a safety and protection of instrument approaches. The FAA does not protect for the OEI, which we dealt with that 2 years ago, and which is why the city in 2019 determined to protect the airspace to the TERP surfaces, thus allowing higher permanent building height. Next slide. Staff worked with our airspace consultant to study the various approach and departure procedures over the downtown and the Deardown Station areas. As you can see from the 3 scenarios depicted, each color represents a different procedure that has a different shape and elevation, and they are stacked on top of each other. These scenarios will be used by staff to work with the FAA regarding our input into the FAA's airspace obstacle analysis process. Several iterations of the airspace protection scenarios were developed based on input received from the stakeholder meetings. Each scenario attempted to balance the needs of the development community for additional temporary construction crane height and the airline's ability to safely operate out of our airport and what approach and departure procedures were the most critical to them. I like to note that each airline does not have, they all don't have the same procedure. They each have different primary and secondary approach procedures. Scenarios 1 and 2 are not shown because they were primarily focused on air service protection, where scenario 3 focused on more of a balance between the airline's primary and secondary approaches and departure procedures and trying to find additional height for the construction cranes. Feedback from the development community was the developers consistently mentioned that they needed more height. And in response, staff had developed a couple more iterations of the airspace protection scenarios, even from 3. So staff continued to review the approach and departure procedures for opportunities to allow additional crane height. And that's where you see scenario 3A and 3B on this particular slide. I do want to mention that on all the scenarios, any adjustments to the approach and departure procedures are considered temporary. When construction cranes are removed from the completion of the building, procedures will revert back to what they were. Next slide. Okay, these maps show the additional crane height gain from the permitted building height. Representational to, just for reference purposes, this map shows 2 high-rise projects under construction, the 200 Park Avenue and the Adobe North Tower. You can see from scenario 3 to 3A to 3B, you see the greatest height increases are in the Deardown Station area and East Downtown, with minor increases in the downtown core. And this is due to the downtown core being impacted by the airport's most critical and precise approach, the instrument landing system, or what we call the ILS. In addition, we need to protect the backup procedures in case the ILS goes out of service. For example, of height increases, the north end of the Deardown Station area ranges from 10 feet in scenario 3 up to 60 feet in scenario 3A above the building heights, or 3B above the building heights. And while if you look at the location of the 200 Park Avenue in the downtown core, the temporary construction cranes may range from 30 to 40 feet above the building height, not much gain between all the 3 scenarios due to the instrument approach. And as a reminder from earlier, the FAA has the sole regulatory responsibility on airspace. So staff would need to work closely with the FAA and the airlines on any temporary adjustments to the approach and departure procedures to allow for additional crane height. Okay, next slide. Okay, we've been talking mostly about the instrument procedures. Now we'll shift to what the impact would be on each of the scenarios to our air service. This chart shows potential weight impacts for our airports for long-haul markets. The top two markets are international and the bottom two markets are domestic. The aircraft depicted in the international market includes the Boeing 787, which is currently in service at the market, and the Boeing 777, which is a growth aircraft in the market. The domestic market aircraft are represented by two versions of the Airbus and then the Boeing 737, which all aircraft are currently serving the respective markets. The numbers in each scenarios are the weight impacts of the passenger and cargo in ranges during summer and winter. So the lower number is generally summer and the upper number is generally winter. The impact is generally during the south flow operations, that is aircraft departing to the south, and occurs approximately 13% of the time and mostly in the winter months, which we consider October to the end of March, our winter months, and it's not an everyday occurrence. In the worst case, in the international market, specifically is the Asian market, which is the upper left-hand section. Looking at the worst case in scenario 3B, the 787 has the potential to lose a significant portion of passengers in the Beijing market. However, the aircraft configuration amongst different carriers can change greatly. For example, ANA has a 215 passenger configuration due to the multiple classes of seats and consideration that Tokyo is closer than Beijing. It may not have a greatest impact as the Hainan aircraft with the 290 seat configuration. Also in the international market, British, moving on to the European market on the upper right side, British Airways has a 216 seat configuration, and with London being closer than Frankfurt, it too may have a less of an impact. And as you can see on the bottom half of the screen, the domestic compartments appear doable with the aircraft that are currently serving the market, even in the worst case scenario of losing 17 passengers on the 737 to Hawaii, which still results in a 90% load factor, which we feel is a doable load factor. And in later slides, we'll suggest how airlines may be supported if any passenger and cargo would be required to be removed due to the construction cranes to safely depart from the south. Next slide. And as I've stated throughout, the FAA has the ultimate regulatory responsibility to protect the TRPS procedures, which again are the instrument and approach and departure procedures. Staff can work with the FAA and the airlines to look at different scenarios, but at the end, the FAA does make the final decisions. The construction crane guidance is also to include the FAA making decisions of no hazard and include any recommended conditions that may include things such as obstruction lighting and marking on the temporary construction cranes. The FAA recommends, and they wanted us to stress this, the FAA recommends that the developers submit for an airspace feasibility study for permanent and temporary structures, including construction cranes, as early as possible. And they said ideally would be during the land procurement phase. So that's early on work that we ask the developers to do so they can get a sense of what the FAA's determinations will be. And I do want to point out the airport, the airlines, and developers are all impacted, and the construction crane guidance attempt is to ease some of those impacts. For example, the developers, we want to ask the developers follow the proposed construction crane guidance, and the airport and airlines will continue to work toward mitigating air service impacts. Next slide. Okay, before you is want to accept the findings of the study, but I wanted to emphasize on the second bullet. Staff will be preparing the construction crane guidance document to be included in all development permits for the downtown core and the Deardown Station area that requires the temporary construction cranes, and to include 3 methods for developers to help minimize impacts to air service. And they are utilizing crane jumps to minimize duration. The cranes are at maximum height, limit maximum crane height to a 6-month window, and schedule maximum crane height during non-south flow months, which are generally April through to September. And I know the developers do have several comments regarding the last two methods, and we do understand that every construction project is different, and staff will continue to work with them to find further methods or mitigation measures to work through their projects. And then on the last slide, I mentioned ways in which we can assist the airlines that may be impacted by reduction of passengers and cargo, and that is to direct staff to explore a landing fee reduction program for all air carriers that may impact that passenger and cargo weight penalties due to the height of construction cranes in the downtown core and the Deer Down Station area. And then we asked you cross-reference this to the full council on March 9th. So I'm available to answer any questions, and thank you for allowing me to present.
Great, thank you for the presentation. I remember one of the first issues that I had to vote on as a council member was the OEI, and how interesting that was to learn about something that I had no idea about. This is a little bit of an expansion of that policy. So it's interesting, and I felt like I had a little bit of background because I knew I had the OEI experience a couple of years ago. Let's go to the public. Paul Soto.
Thank you. Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. This is a really interesting conversation with regard to the airport. Thank you for that presentation. That helped me a lot get a very comprehensive understanding of how, when we make decisions to allow a developer to build, oh, well, just go ahead and just build it. We need more housing, we need more housing, we need more housing, and they get it built. Look at how many nuanced details go into the overall production of that, and how many disruptions in every single facet of our lives are impacted by the implementation and the erection and the completion of these buildings. I mean, I think we really need to start taking a look at that, and I am so glad I made this meeting. The other thing that I would like to note is that passenger list. The passenger list was directly, you can correlate passenger list, incoming traffic through the airport, and directly tie it to Team San Jose and their marketing techniques. Okay, you can make not even a correlation, but a causative effect, because they have access to that information. Me as a citizen, I don't. I'm just able to put the pieces together. Because like I said, I know how to play chess. I've played chess before. So I know what my opponent is doing. And my opponent are the people that are coming to the city and have absolutely no investment in the actual citizens that make below $70,000. In fact, they're hoping that they would just leave, just get out of here. So what I'm asking for is protection. I'm asking for the council and this committee to make sure and ensure that we as a city are protected. This 6-month window, as soon as they get their license for it, in this 6-month window, I'm going to be watching for that. I'm going to make sure that those cranes come down in 6 months. Thank you.
Mr. Beekman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I guess, a big thank you to everybody for working on this issue, and what I assume is some incredibly important work by the Airport Commission to really, mellow out and hammer out a really good arrangement of what to expect for our future of downtown high-rises in the airport runway area. And I think, the incredibly high stories that you wanted to initially build are just unacceptable and impossible, basically. And the Airport Commission really made the attempts to bring really realistic, good ideas that I think Paul Soto would be interested in about, just more practical applications of the same things that Chamber of Commerce and city developers want. I think they brought in a really good ideas to the project. I hope their ideas are listened to. In the initial plans, the future of runway, the future of travel to Brazil would be cut off completely. The future travel to South America. And I hope, that's being reinstituted. And it's the airport commission that is going to help develop those ideas. I hope this is just a 6-month plans, and that, future travel to Southeast Asia is going to be incredibly important, I think, to San Jose, through all of Southeast Asia. And, I hope this 6-month window of crane building, will not interfere with that good future and just a good future we can plan. And so thank you for this. Does take an effort of everyone to work on and understand. And that's just where I'm coming from. I feel it can be of help. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Neese.
Good afternoon, Chair Foley, members of the committee, Scott Neese, San Jose Downtown Association. You're exactly right. This is a continuation of the policy that was put in place 2 years ago, allowed higher buildings to be built downtown, and now we need crane guidance to help us build those taller buildings. Really want to thank Airport Director John Aiken and Judy and the team for their collaboration to get to this this guidance that is being presented today. And one thing I would like to add to Judy's excellent presentation is we also had the construction companies in the outreach. And it was very clear that it made no sense at the very beginning to put a crane up to its full height, even though that has happened in the downtown. It's so much more inefficient. And the companies, and we had more than one, just talked about, there is some extra expense of jumping the crane when you get up to the height. But the whole idea here was to minimize the time that we're up in that airspace and trying to get that into this 6-month window, and if possible, if it happens, to do it during the summer when we have so few departures turned around to the south. So I'd like to again thank everybody who worked so well on this. We're interested in continuing the collaboration as you've got this recommendation to kind of come back with a reduced landing fee, and if that's going to be correlated to a future permit fee, we certainly want to get more details on all of that. Thanks.
Thank you. Turning back to my colleagues then, Council Member Perales.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, staff, for the presentation on this very complicated I know subject, and certainly it's taken a lot of in-depth analysis, but in an attempt to try and both achieve some great heights, maximum heights in the downtown core, and not impede on our airport, it obviously is impossible, because we have our airport with the pathways leading right over our downtown. And so just appreciate the depth of the analysis that's gone on here. And I will be moving approval, but I did have one question, and that was in regards to an ability that we may have to have, I guess, a fee, or maybe I don't know, a fine would be the more correct term, for any developments that may go beyond, for instance, this suggested 6 months time frame of your crane, maximum height of the crane. And I'm thinking specifically in regards to developments like the Silvery Tower development, where it's literally been delayed years, and we had cranes erected in our sky for years on that development, and it's still not fully complete. And what that impact may have, and how do we not just have a policy that asks for that in the beginning, but that we do have some teeth if indeed we have some developments that are taking extremely long.
Councilman, if I understand your question, it would be a landing fee reduction program. And that would be for the flights that would be impacted as they depart, that have had to remove passengers or cargo. And just to give you perspective of what that fee would be on a 737-800, it's probably right around 650, 700 a landing fee. The other one, it was 787 landing fee for each line is right now is around $1,600. So what we would do is go back and study how we could work with the community to generate the funds to support that program. There has been some initial research from our CAO who identifies it's actually would be considered a support program, and we'd have to work through the details and how that could be funded and by the cranes that are impacted by the cranes that impact our air service.
Could we also additionally have a fine if there is someone that goes, well beyond, a 6-month time frame of having their cranes up in the air? Again, with the prime example that we have of the Silvery Towers development that's in the downtown core. So is there something we can have that would have teeth on the back end? What it sounds like we're contemplating here is a program that maybe is a fee, generates revenue, and then we can use that revenue to offset the cost maybe that these air carriers have. But I'm still not seeing some sort of disincentive to a developer that may be, again, the prime example, Silvery Towers, that has a crane in the air for 3 years. And so is there legally teeth that we can put in regards to disincentivizing that and having, say, a fine attached to that?
It's something that I'll note to for us to explore as we develop the program. So today's action is to direct staff to explore the program. I made a note to take a look at the fine issue too for those that go past a certain time period or the 6 months.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that'd be the only piece. I think that I'm comfortable with the suggestion of this fee program, and where we maybe can generate a fund to help offset what losses the air carriers are facing. But I just think that we really need to encourage the development community to actually complete their projects in a timely manner. Specifically, I think, again, if there's something that's so egregious that it's way beyond the general term of what it may take for a high rise and a crane to be up in the sky. This is not typical, but we have seen it specifically in our own downtown. And I think if you're in some other cities where you're not impacting an airport, no big deal, right? I guess it takes long, and you sort of you wait for that project to be completed. But in our case, we're now talking about butting up against, right, our airplanes operations, our airports operations, and we have to be cognizant of that. And we can't just, I think, have a 6-month policy without teeth. We'd have to have something in there that actually is the teeth to discourage developers from lagging and dragging out the development, as we've seen in the case with that project downtown. So that would be my only suggestion at the moment. Thank you for the briefing that you provided me as well ahead of time, and I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Then I have a comment just to piggyback at what Councilmember Peralez said. I agree that we really need to take a look at a fee or fine, some sort of fine structure for developers who are far exceeding the 6-month timeline, because that's going to have a negative impact on our airlines. And as our airlines are struggling and we want them to survive and grow and move more passengers around and bring them into the city of San Jose to create economic growth here, we need to make sure that those cranes aren't causing an obstacle for for our airports, our airport. So I would like to see some sort of fee structure or fine implemented or brought back in the proposal. With that, Judy, thank you so much for your presentation. Let's vote.
Carrasco,
Hi.
Morales,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Esparza,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item, which is a review of council policy, policy priority number 7, universal development fee. Kim, are we going to hear this in conjunction with the fee study work plan or 2 separate presentations?
No, 2 separate items, but as you'll see, they have a dotted line connection, so we have them next to each other on the agenda. But hear them
Okay.
together, I would suggest.
Very good. Thank you. Who's making that presentation?
Me.
There you are. Okay, there you are, Jared.
Hi,
Thank you.
good afternoon, committee members. Jared Ferguson with the Office of Economic Development. I'm the Housing Catalyst here today to talk to you about Council Priority number 7, the Development Fee Framework. So just some background. This item was added to the Council Priority list in March of 2019. The initial priority was to explore creating a universal development fee for residential development that would contain all current development taxes and impact fees. The overall goal is to provide the development community and the public with a transparent view as to how fees are calculated. So it's easier for developers to estimate the costs and easier for the public to understand what the developer was paying. Subsequent to that, November 5th of 2019, there was a report back to council where staff recommended pursuing a slightly different approach of a development fee framework rather than a universal development fee. Well, it's possible the city could pursue pursuing a universal fee that would cover everything. It would be kind of time and resource intensive and present potential legal challenges. So the approach proposed then was to pursue this development fee framework, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. Then there's further direction from council at that time that the framework itself would not result in any increase or decrease to existing fees or taxes. We had a planned report to the Community and Economic Development Committee in March of 2020. We had actually conducted one outreach meeting and had things ready to go, but then that meeting was canceled because of the shelter-in-place order that went in place in March of last year. And so that report became the informational memo, and some of our outreach got a little bit delayed as we went through the pandemic. So just to some further information, development fee framework, what do we mean when we say that? We're intending to provide a structure that will guide implementing plan changes to existing fees and taxes, specifically for multifamily residential development. As I mentioned, the framework itself does not propose to increase or decrease any of these fees, but again, provides a guide for how future and plan changes to fees will be implemented. So as we're looking at the framework, there's really 3 major categories of development fees when it comes to residential development. These 3 represent about 60 to 80% of the city's total fee and cost per residential unit. And this is from our previous analysis in our report on the cost of residential development. So, these are the ones that we've chose to focus on since they represent such a significant cost to make up such a substantial portion of the cost to residential development. So the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance, as I'm sure you're more familiar with, requires all new for sale and rental to provide 15% of new units on site as affordable, or pay an in lieu fee based on a 20% obligation. The Park Land Dedication and Park Impact Ordinance requires that new housing dedicate land for recreational purposes and or pay in lieu fees or improve existing facilities. And then as was mentioned at the beginning, PRNS is at the beginning stages of reviewing and recommending updates to this. And that'll be the next item on the agenda. And then lastly, there are two construction taxes. The building and structures tax is a special tax specific to street enhancement. The commercial residential mobile home park tax, or the CRIMP, is a general tax with no restrictions, but typically spent on infrastructure. They're based on a percentage of building valuation. The effective combined rate for both is 3.9% of the 100% of the project's valuation. So those are the three. So as we were thinking about the framework, there's sort of three elements that we're proposing that will better help align the structure of these major development fees. So the metric of calculation, the development's typology, and then geography. And I'll talk a little bit about each of those. So for the metric of calculation, so it's sort of how is the fee assessed, or how is it calculated? What we're proposing within the context of the fee framework is that it should be based on square feet, and specifically net rentable square feet, and that we would also have a shared definition of that, so that, you know, in all three of these situations, you're basing it off the same sort of definition, rather than you know, per unit or versus you know, other factors. So the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance, as you're probably familiar, the proposed changes at the council tomorrow would shift its assessment from a per unit basis to per square feet. The parks in lieu fees are currently charged based on land values on real estate multiple listing service areas on a per unit basis, and there's distinctions made between the different development typologies: single family attached, single family detached, multifamily 2 to 4 units, and over 5 units. And there's also a separate category for high rise. And then lastly, taxes, as I mentioned, are based on building valuation. So the next, development typology. So this is an area where we need to do a little bit more work, but generally we would think that this would look at construction type. We have some basis in this now with our high-rise program. For the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance, there's no current delineation by type except for high-rise in the downtown core. And as I mentioned, parks already has a basis in typology, and I think as a part of the update, PRNS is going to be looking at that a little bit more in depth. And the construction taxes are, as I said, based on building type. And then the third element, development geography. So trying to better align over time, you know, the basis for these fees. Some are currently citywide, some do use a map, and aligning those geographic areas, so that when we're sort of looking at one area of the city and across these fees, they're kind of using the same shared geographies. So as a part of the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance changes being proposed tomorrow at council, that there's a new area or geography being proposed that's based on planning areas. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And as I mentioned, parks fees are based on MLS districts, and the taxes are currently assessed citywide. What we're proposing is that the IHO areas can be a starting point for the fee framework to be used as we look at other future changes to fees. So the IHO areas were our planning areas. We made modifications to them only to clarify. There were some boundaries that weren't really tied directly to kind of natural or man-made boundaries, either a river, a creek, a road, or things like that. And then there's some southern areas that were combined in that are unlikely to have kind of a lot of activity. So felt it made sense to combine those in. So this is the map of those areas. As you can see, very, very similar to the planning areas that we already have. And so then there's one additional item as part of this council priority that was combined together. It was previously a separate priority part of the housing crisis work plan regarding the timing of payment for residential units. The goal to align when fees are paid closer to certificate of occupancy versus at the time of permit issuance. So this has some benefit to housing projects in terms of their costs. And so this already aligns with the goals in the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance, this already aligns with the practices in the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance. So this will be another aspect that we look at as we're making changes to fees in the future. So we had one outreach meeting recently on February 11th. We had about 36 attendees. The group was composed of market rate and affordable developers and housing and parks advocates. Some of the feedback we received highlighted here. So there's just some general questions about the IHO map and the previous planning area map, questions about the timing and of the updates and any potential updates to Nexus studies, and questions about how it relates to PIO, PDO. I think the overall feedback was, the overall approach was viewed positively by those in attendance. They mentioned that the deferral closer to occupancy is helpful. They appreciated the clarity and certainty that the goals of the framework would provide, and also suggested that we consider looking at offsite improvements as another area to consider as part of the framework. So with that, that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you, Jared. Turning to members of the public, Paul Soto.
Good afternoon. Once again, thank you for that, Paralis. I appreciate you doing that. I think that the taxes need to be at an exorbitant rate to disincentivize the developers from prolonging their construction. So thank you for that. With respect to this, if there ever was a policy that we need the Racial Equity Office in and become intimately versed in what's happening in this particular meeting, it's this one. We really need to get comfortable talking about redlining, how it affected parks, how it affected land use, how it affected taxes. You see, we haven't, we're moving, we're putting a filling over a cavity. We haven't drilled out the cavity so that we could put the filling on top of it. You see, and there's beneficiaries of our lack of will, our lack of political courage to confront Willow Glen and the Rose Garden and other areas that have been historically the beneficiaries of these just going through presentations and not paying attention. I'm well educated with these areas. I have a the redlining map of San Jose that wasn't talked about in this particular meeting. So it's this kind of let's just forget about that happened then. Nobody's benefiting from it, and we've used an equity lens in order to promote land distribution, taxing, and parks. And so, I mean, what Kim Wallace and Ciccarelli are doing, they're so used to just passing these kinds of memos through, people approving them, and them going through without nobody checking it. So I've been watching this whole time, and it's not going to happen anymore. It's just not. We need the Office of Racial Equity in on this particular item and this particular conversation, and that's what I'm requesting of the council of. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beekman.
Hi. Yeah, to kind of try to add to what the previous speaker just spoke about. You know, this was a nice presentation, and it's with an issue that, I mean, we've all just been waiting for, to have a structure to the future of inclusionary fees for, I guess, you know, for high rises in downtown area. I mean, I think that's something we're just waiting for. And maybe a way to address what Paul was saying was that, you know, why not treat this item, you know, to its proactive measures, you know, and offer its good, offer what its intentions will be. So we all have clear rules of the road in the future that developers need to pay their fair share. And, you know, and to go into a bit of a study about that during the public meeting process, I think would help all of us out. And I don't think we would feel so miserable or shameful, you know, about what we're doing. I mean, we're trying to build a more sustainable future right now. And, you know, to understand the value of profit and profit margin. I mean, we just had a item in PISPIS that high-rise buildings can't have certain protections, fire protections. And the fire department has to go through a whole bunch of hoops just to, you know, maintain some sort of level of normalcy for the project, because developers and the city can't get together to help out this high-rise situation. So there is something wrong with the fee system, and currently there is not, you know, it's gone really cheap for developers. That will have to move back to, they're going to have to pay a bit more soon in the future. I hope we can be ready for that. And this continual back and forth has been tiring, and I just hope we're ready to really build that future. Why not make this time at public comment and at public meeting space to explain, you know, these good practices and this good future? These are the ideas of equity, and why not explain them to the public? Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Do any of my council member colleagues have any questions, comments, care to make a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Second.
Great, thank you. If there's no comments, I actually have a question regarding the questions at the back at the outreach meeting, Jared. What do we do? What have we done with that information? It seems like the attendees had some interesting questions and input. How do we follow up on that, and how do we circle back with them about that?
Yeah, I guess maybe I wasn't explained that way, but I think most of those questions were answered at the meeting. I had a live kind of question and answers. So I've had some also subsequent individual one-on-one conversations with some of those folks from the meeting to kind of further answer their questions and comments as well. So I think, and I probably failed to mention, I think we also plan to have more outreach opportunities to have the type of conversations as well with, you know, related to the fee framework as we're continuing to, you know, iterate. So.
Great, thank you. And they preferred the square footage approach rather than per unit.
Yeah, they did. And also, as I mentioned, just clarity on the definition too, making sure that we're consistent in terms of how we're measuring, so that it's the same number that they're calculating and that we're calculating, and it's across the board, right? The same. So
I think that's what would be really helpful for them, because they're trying to figure out if a development is going to make sense to them, and if the fee structure keeps changing, or they don't have a sense of what the number will be. If it's a number now in the beginning and changes at the end, that's very difficult for them and their financier, and then they won't get the project built, whether it's affordable housing, low-income housing, or market rate housing. Okay, with that, let's vote.
Carrasco?
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Mahan?
Aye.
Esparza?
Yes.
Foley?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. And the next item, thank you for that presentation. The next item is similar. It's on the parkland dedication and park impact ordinance.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Nicole Burnham, Deputy Director with the
Hi,
Department
Nicole.
of Recreation and Neighborhood Services, here to present for you on this item. And with me, I have, are you able to see?
It's small, but we
Hold
can
on.
see it. And I got new contact lenses, so I can see it even better now.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so again, sorry for that. Nicole Burnham, Deputy Director with the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. And with me, I have Rebecca Ross, who's a supervising planner with our department. And we are here to dovetail on what Jared was just talking to you about with regard to the park impact fees. This is a program that has not been evaluated and really looked at in a number of years. Not only have we not adjusted our fees since 2017, but the program itself was implemented, one of the ordinances in the late 80s and one in the early 90s, and we really have never revisited them. It's been a while. It's also been a while since we have evaluated how developers are given credits for private recreation amenities and really just holistically how this program works. So we are embarking on a, it's not letting me advance my slides. So let's see. Apologize, everybody. Let me do something here. I'm not sure why it's given me fits. I do.
Nicole, would you like me to try and share my presentation?
No, it's all right, Rebecca. I'm going to go ahead to the timeline, and I'll just talk through the slides or the study goals, and I'll talk through the background while I'm sharing that slide. So we have embarked on engaging a consultant to support us and to help evaluate our current fees and our current program. We are close to making a selection and announcing the selection of the consultant, but we wanted this item in the agenda to dovetail with the overall fee, the fee framework discussion that Jared gave you. But the good news is about us being so early in the process is that this gives us an opportunity very early on to hear your feedback. I heard loud and clear the question of equity. That's something that as a department we talk about a lot and focus on a lot. And I assure you it will be part of our stuff here as we evaluate our park fees. The concept and our request for qualifications included a really robust outreach plan so that we could have a stakeholder group engage deeply with us and with the community and with housing and really help us make sure we are able to develop some equity in this framework. But I'm going to let Rebecca kind of explain the overall program and kind of what the work plan is and the schedule for that. So, and our expectation is that we're going to be here, we will be reporting back to you at regular intervals, probably every 6 months through the course of this project.
Thank you, Nicole. Are you able to share the next slide? Thank you. I think Nicole hit on most. This is Rebecca Ross, supervising planner for Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. Nicole hit on most of the major points of what the intention and the goals of the work plan are. So what you see before you is our timeline projected to the end of next year and what we hope to accomplish first. So we're in the very beginning stages. We're, as Nicole said, we're close to selecting that consultant and awarding a contract by the end of March. And then we're going to move into a slow step-by-step process to start working towards this fee study that will primarily be used to inform the council members and the public about steps going forward and as best we can to align it with other city priorities such as the inclusionary housing ordinance and the development fee framework. We expect that we're going to start community outreach this summer, and we're going to have a very robust public outreach plan. It's going to have an equity lens with that as well. But we can share that reports about that when we come back in 6 months. And with that, I can open it up for questions about the timeline or the work plan or the program.
Let's go to members of the public first. Thank you for that presentation. Paul Soto.
Yes, thank you for that. I would hope that the council will consult Zuma's office and really bring in, first of all, we have to start talking about redlining and how that created the resource funding, tax base, and beautification of Willow Glen and the Rose Garden. But at the same time, it was at the expense of, it's not just that they got a piece and I'm envious of it. My mother and father had to suffer on the east side with absolutely no resources. In the book, The Devil in Silicon Valley, you see kids playing in open sewers because the allocation of funds was going to the infrastructure that set up Willow Glen the way that it is now. I mean, look at how beautiful it is. Isn't it grand to just go over there to Willow Glen Park and the bike lanes and the streets and the canopied trees? See, unless we start normalizing, and I'm really making an attempt to make them normalize, you will hear me talking about this. You see, when you're dealing with these nonprofits here in San Jose, and because they mouth equity with their mouth, they're not at these meetings. I am at every single council meeting from start to finish. I'm at every single committee meeting, start to finish. I read every single one of these memos, highlighting with pens, and I do my homework. So, and I don't mean this to sound arrogant as it's gonna sound, but if you're having these conversations about equity, redlining, the allocation funds then and now, and I'm not in the room or in that conversation, the conversation isn't complete. And I say that with no amount of arrogance, but of confidence, because I know what I'm doing and I know the service that I'm paying to my city and to my ancestors that had suffered under the policies of the redlining and the tax base and the allocation of funds to certain areas at the expense of my ancestors. So I'd like to be in on that conversation, and I would like Zuma's office in on this policy. Thank you.
Mr. Beekman.
Hi, thank you. To kind of conclude from my previous item, you know, it is a balance that staff has to do to present items to the public. You know, I just feel there can be ways to talk about the ideas of the last item and this item, you know, that are, I don't know, I use the word proactive, that, you know, can just you know, maintain a neutral territory for both developers and to the ideas of equity that these next three items are all a part of, I can be a part of. And it's okay to use that language. You know, there's a certain fear that that language will be somehow inciting and it would be detrimental. But it you know, I think it would just improve our community and our communication with each other, and the ways we talk to each other, and we can get out of, you know, years and decades of fear we have just to talk about things openly and honestly. And, you know, because I mean, there's a lot of study of equity within city government that's not talked about openly and publicly, and it should be. And, you know, it's those efforts we can make right now. And to bring that back to this item is going to have issues of open public policy practices for all the new surveillance technology you're going to be placing in these parks. Now, shouldn't that conversation be open and warm and friendly and developing really good policies instead of keeping it secretive and warlike and hidden from the public, as San Jose has a really bad habit to do? You know, I'm looking for that good future, and I keep talking about it, and I hope we're all learning how to do it. And so thanks for your patience and what we can do to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. No further public comment. Is there a motion or any discussion from council? Matt, Councilmember Mahan, sorry.
Thanks. It's okay. You can call me Matt. Yeah, I'll certainly move to accept the report. I don't know if you want to wait on a second.
Second.
Question. Thank you. Do have a quick question. I realize now I probably should have raised it on the last item, but they're obviously inextricably linked. And I guess the question is, as we do future analysis of fees, I'm curious if staff has ever in the past or would consider analyzing the generation of fees for new development versus the ongoing tax revenue the city receives once a development occurs, and understanding the two. And I think it's great if we can get both, and we do. And obviously the one-time fees are really important, and I certainly understand that. I also wonder, and I really just want to be educated on this because I could be wrong, but we spend a lot of time talking about one-off fees and not a lot of time talking about the ongoing tax base and revenue, at least from what I've seen. I could be wrong about that, but I would love to better understand if we could somehow accelerate, streamline, get more of the development we want faster. What does that actually mean in hard numbers in terms of the ongoing tax base that could then be used to achieve our goals for Parks and Rec and our goals for equity in Parks and Rec access and so forth. So just would love to better understand that. If the city's already done an analysis, I'd love to be pointed to it, but anyway, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, Councilmember Mahan, I believe it's probably time to take a look at that again. We did that in the context of creating and then doing the first 4-year review of the Envision 2040 plan. And it was really quite stark. We did a lot of education of council members about how under California's tax and fiscal system, one of the reasons we care so much about preserving employment lands is they're the only net fiscally positive land use that we have.
Right.
And they are how we pay for the services to our neighborhoods. You know, as you know, 94% of our residential lands are single family, and we're sort of, that's the way it is. That's not going to change. And taken as a whole, those are lost leaders. They're fiscal losers for us. And it remains to be seen. High density housing appears that in its early years, it can be fiscally positive or fiscally neutral, but we'll see what happens over time because it's of course subject to Prop 13 constraints on revenue growth and all of that. So when we've looked at the cost of development, we've tended to look at it in a pretty sophisticated way, but in a static way. And so I really think your suggestion is a good one. And especially every time we get new council members, it's important to go over material that is kind of understood, you know, by people that have been here for a while. So I know you understand this in and now because you've written about it, but I do think that's a good suggestion. We have to figure out how and when to do that.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I would love that. And I'll follow up offline to get access to what you've previously done. I know in business, it was always about recurring revenue, right? Trying to lock in that ongoing revenue, but I also understand the special constraints we face with.
And Spur did a really great report about San Jose's fiscal situation a number of years ago that involved working partnerships and others. So it's a pretty well documented situation.
Is that Back in the Black?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, great report.
Great title.
Okay, great.
And I'll just add,
Well, did you want? Okay.
From a park fee perspective, you know, the guiding framework for our park fees is actually state statute and legislation, right? That's mandating that we try to get 3 acres of parkland for every 1,000 new residents. So I don't know how, it's something we can certainly explore and think about, but I don't know how to meet that state ordinance in the context of, you know, looking at more at ongoing revenue. So that's something we have to think more about.
Great. Yeah. Also a really interesting point as we look to do more infill. You know, is acreage really the most important thing, or is it usage, quality of the amenities, access beyond just acreage? But great, cool. Well, would love to follow up soon on some of those topics. Thank you.
Great point. Thank you. I see no other hands raised, so let's vote.
Carrasco?
Aye.
Perales? Perales?
I'm sorry. Aye.
Thank you. Mahan?
Aye.
Barza,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the wayfinding report.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Foley. We do have a short staff presentation on the item. So Blagas Lalich with the Office of Economic Development and Downtown Manager. And I'm here today with my colleagues from Economic Development, Sal Alvarez, and Jessica Zank and Ryan Smith from the Department of Transportation. And Sal is going to run you through a short presentation. We're really happy to be here with kind of our annual report on downtown wayfinding and the progress that we've made. I just want to say, though, that unfortunately we haven't made as much progress over the last year due to the impacts of COVID and obviously having other unforeseen priorities, but we have made some progress and we are looking forward to some implementation here over the next few months. The other note that I'd like to make is concerning COVID, both having taken our staff prioritization, a little bit of that time away, but also has impacted the funding that was originally anticipated for this project through the parking fund. And so you'll hear a little bit about that, both from Sal and Ryan, and how we're trying to approach that moving forward in order to implement this really important project. So with that, I will turn it over to Sal.
Thank you, Blage. So hopefully the screens are working the way they're supposed to. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Sal Alvarez in the Office of Economic Development. I've had the privilege to work with our consultant, City ID, on this project. This topic may be familiar with some of the committee members, but we have a few new members, and I want to make sure we get a little background on wayfinding. So what is wayfinding? So wayfinding is the way we orient ourselves to our environment through subliminal and literal signs around us. So Kevin Lynch used the phrase mental map in his seminal book, The Image of the City. And I guess, how do we create a mental map? And it could be as simple as the orientation you are to the sun, to public art and placemaking, to building signage and actual maps. So for example, thinking of a mental map, if someone has not been to downtown in a little while, and you say, hey, let's meet up for lunch at San Pedro Square Market, and they respond, well, where's that? And you could just reply, well, it's just down from the old spaghetti factory. And people go like, oh yeah, I know where that is. I've been to the old spaghetti factory. That's kind of an example of how we sort of create a mental map in our minds and how we orient ourselves to our surroundings. So why is wayfinding important? And for downtown San Jose, much of our economic activity, as we heard a little earlier, centers around event life. So Sharks games, concerts, conventions, special events like Christmas in the Park, and which is more so than your normal everyday activities. So when a visitor, local or a tourist, come to downtown, it's important they have a great experience. The challenge of our downtown is our districts are kind of spread apart, and the routes that connect them are not intuitive or encourage exploration. So it's not like you can stand in Sofa and look down the street and see San Pedro. You actually have to go seek it out. So an example, like the genius of Walt Disney in Disneyland is that every square foot is programmed and incentivizes staying longer and ultimately spending more money. For us, the better the experience of our visitors and having them to know how to get around our downtown, the longer they'll stay and contribute to the local economy. And so our wayfinding system, you can see on the map, is sort of based around these ideas of handoffs. So you arrive to your destination, could be the convention center, could be SAP, could be SOFA, could be Diridon. And then you have to figure out how am I gonna get to my next destination. So the idea is to create that welcome when you get there and a series of handoffs to get to your intended destination. So our downtown wayfinding project started in July 2018. And over that time period, we developed the downtown map and iterated design concepts we tested at the NHL All-Star Game and further refined the concept of schematic drawings for prototype development. This time last year, we were poised to procure a prototype of our navigation, or what we call the mesh product. And that was put on hold as we were, as Blage mentioned, we were assigned, as OED staff were assigned to the EOC to respond to the coronavirus pandemic. And that response was prioritized citywide. The effects of COVID-19 in the downtown also impacted our pilot areas. So we were originally going to test the pilot between San Jose State and the McHenry Convention Center. And as we've heard earlier, San Jose State has gone to remote learning classes. So there are virtually no classes or events on campus. And then all conventions and events have been canceled in our city, and not just in our city, but across the state, as you heard earlier as well. This year, we're focusing on issuing a request for proposals for a new pilot area in the North San Pedro area, where we received grant funding for the Bassett Street Affordable Housing Project. And so here's some images of stakeholder engagement, and I'll show you a list of stakeholders that we've worked with closely along the way. And so, of course, the Downtown Association and Team San Jose have been very, very active participants. So have mobility advocates like Walk San Jose, the Bicycle Coalition, and Ride East Side San Jose, along with VTA, MTC, and San Jose State University. So here's just sort of a partial list of organizations. It's actually a pretty good list of organizations, but we have actual individuals' names, which we decided not to share that right now. And then here's some examples of the user testing that happened in front of the McHenry Convention Center during the NHL All-Star game weekend. And then on the right is actually the Silicon Valley Comic-Con convention we had a little later. And you can kind of see how some of the things have changed in the design and how we've been iterating. And then I want to show you some examples of the family of products developed through the design process. So the mesh product, we're also referring to as the navigation product, as what we are piloting through the Bassett Affordable Housing for Sustainable Communities grant. The arrival totem would be placed in locations like Dearden Station and light rail stations. The hotspot totem would be deployed in places like the McHenry Convention Center and is also being developed with the San Jose State University. The trail totem would be placed along our trail system. So one of the updates for this happened this past year is we were approached by the VTA in early summer, who have been active participants, and they've been sort of waiting for their opportunity to participate. And so they actually sought to get authorization from the MTC for funding. And so what they will be doing is actually developing the arrival totem at light rail stations along the transit mall in downtown, which is great news. So additionally, the MTC has been working at the regional level to generate consensus among transit providers to develop a harmonization among products throughout the Bay Area, with funding expected to be approved later this spring to implement the arrival totem in major transit stations like Dearden Station and at BART. Our bike share stations, if you've seen them, and these maps maybe look a little familiar to you, is that our bike share stations actually use the same map system, not just here in San Jose, but then also in San Francisco and Oakland and throughout the Bay Area that have bike share. So the wayfinding system is designed to be modular and extendable and to be implemented with partners. To help wrap your head on what I'm kind of talking about here is we've been working at the regional level to implement a wayfinding system that eventually, the vision is you get on the train at Dearden or at Berryessa, and when you disembark in Oakland or San Francisco, you're greeted with similar wayfinding products. They may be different colors, but will be the same form. The portion that would be appropriate for San Jose to implement potentially is a handful of products that you can see, maybe my arrow you can see is this area here. The key source of funding, as Blage mentioned, to implement from implementation is the parking fund, which revenues have been impacted by COVID-19 and limit our ability to implement. So we're looking for partners to help maintain our momentum over the recovery. So as you can kind of see, the whole system is like a long sort of list of products, and partners can actually implement different portions of it. So VTA, for example, can do some portion of it, which they're interested in doing. And then same with the MTC, are interested in funding elements as well. So here's the mapping resource we've developed of the downtown and sort of the greater downtown area. And what we're able to do with this is that as we generate and grow the map, we're actually able to make it easier for the system to be extended and adopted by our partners. In the memo that we've referenced is we've received a lot of interest in interactive kiosks, which are here, and here are some examples. So in New York City, they have Link NYC, and more locally in the Bay Area is IKE, Interactive Kiosk Experience, and that's been deployed in Berkeley. So interactive kiosks provide public information like wayfinding and local business directories and cultural celebrations, for example, as well as offering public benefits such as free Wi-Fi or the ability to make emergency calls. And with that, I'll shift over to Ryan, who can talk a little bit more about the next steps.
Thanks, Sal. Hi, I'm Ryan Smith with the Department of Transportation. And I'll just briefly describe the next steps and more or less a summary of what Sal has said already. But basically, we're going to begin implementation in the coming months. We have funding from the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities grant program as part of an affordable housing development in the North San Pedro area downtown. And so this will be the focus of where we're first going to build out the wayfinding system. And what we're going to be using, as part of this is focusing on the mesh navigation totems that Sal just showed. And that's going to help facilitate connections from this area to transit and to other areas in downtown. So the timeline for that, we're going to put out an RFP shortly. And then we're going to implement this in the summer so we can coordinate with some other projects that are going on in that area, including other projects from the same grant, such as sidewalk improvements. That way we can kind of coordinate construction in that way. And then ongoing, we're going to continue to look for additional funding opportunities, including future affordable housing sustainable communities grant opportunities.
Great, thank you. Let's go to public comment. Mr. Beekman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. To try to conclude, it's, the third part in my words on public comment at this time. If city government offers intelligent dialogue to the public, then the public, the community is going to give back intelligent words and play fairly. Government, not just San Jose, but government itself has a real fear to be honest and share openness with its public. And that's a really bad habit we have. And I think the open public policy ideas I work with allow us a way to just develop a better selves, our better persons, and a better consciousness of ourselves. And I hope we make those efforts. With this item, you're talking about all these wonderful practices with technology. It's going to have surveillance. It's going to have data collection involved. Why not develop the ideas of open public policies so that gives an added experience and comfort to a person walking through the downtown area with this stuff? I mean, that monolith totem pole is fearful. I mean, that's going to be loaded with surveillance and loaded with data collection stuff. And you're going to say, this is our wonderful future? I mean, build the stuff so people can ask about it and they can feel they can trust to ask their government questions about it. That's how you build our sustainable future. That's responsibility. And, this is fearful, fearful stuff we're dealing with. And you have to build it with the intention to invite the public. The public and the government are now going to be more connected and more sharing information. It isn't government handing down their information to the public. This is going to be a more shared experience now. So learn to practice open public policies. It will be good and safe. Thank you.
Paul Soto.
Yes, excellent, Blair, excellent. Thank you for that. God, I don't know what these meetings would be like without without Blair. Seriously, I mean that. With respect to this, reading from the memo, it says, unfortunately, trying to find your way around downtown can be challenging, particularly for a new or infrequent visitor because, and I was just like, I don't need help looking down. I can walk around downtown blindfolded. I mean, so it's just even right here in the language. I mean, it's just very clear. You guys are marketing this city and you're basically selling it. San Jose is for sale. How much you got? Because we're basically going to sell it to you. So go ahead and bring all these technologies, number one. Number two, I want to know what an RFP is, okay? Because he mentioned it in an acronym, and I don't know what that means. I'm the public. You're doing public policy using public money, and you're accessing grant money. I want to know what that means, number one. Number two, I want to know what affordable means, because you said North San Pedro. I want to know the definition of affordable, the metric that you used, and the precise location of that particular housing project that you accessed grant money in order to fortify the local infrastructure within that particular space. Because I mean, this is a trip, man. I mean, you listen to you guys talk, and there's this complete disconnection from understanding what an older cat like myself that is born here and raised here and experienced the generational deprivation of wealth and the racism here. You see, you people haven't experienced that. That's why they hire all these consultants from out of town to come in here and try to educate me about how to navigate my downtown. Are you serious? You got to be kidding me. You know, I survived through downtown, through the porn industry, man, when downtown was filled with nothing but pornographers and this city was getting rich off of that. And I was forced to walk through that with child predators trying to hit me up going to the Jose Theater.
Thank you. Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thanks. And first off, we have definitely been guilty of this often, which is using acronyms and not describing them. So I'll answer for staff. An RFP is a request for proposal, and it's something that we'll put out to the public at large, but really for the companies that may be interested in actually applying for a particular job or offering that we have out there, where we're looking for a professional service to do that service for us, and we'll put that out for a bid, public bidding process. It can get pretty complicated, but I do appreciate that, and I know that we get bogged down sometimes with acronyms. And just want to thank staff for the work on this. Unfortunately, we have endured a really challenging year, and I know that this was initially set to end June of this year, and so I just wanted to see, was there any extension that was going to be put in place for this, or no? Is it still set to wind down June of this year?
So our agreement with our consultants to do the design work it expires in June, but we can extend it if we have funding to actually to do that. And so, but for the work that needs to get done between now and then is the request for proposals. As you, thank you for, you did a great job describing that. But what we're going to do is get the RFP out on the street and get some bids. And then with the grant money that we have from the state is to actually go and implement the fabrication and installation of that pilot area that we're talking about. And Ryan, if you want to jump in, feel free to do that.
I mean, that pretty much sums it up, I would say, as far as the portion of this that's going to be funded through the grant program. I mean, it's not the only thing that's funded through the grant program. There's other parts of the project that relate to bike use, sidewalk improvements and such.
Okay. I just wasn't certain if there was, if there were, I guess, delays or kind of parts of this work that was not completed because of COVID-19. And it sounds like we could extend it, but that's going to cost us, correct? And so I guess that was more my interest is, was there something that maybe, that we fell behind on, or wasn't completed with the consultant here, and that would be extended without any cost, but it sounds like that's not the case. In regards to the parking fund, obviously, right, it's had significant impacts. What are the thoughts in that regard? I mean, I don't think that we'll expect to see that back, up to its full revenue generation this year. And I know that staff is still looking at the effects that has, but are there any thoughts on that right now?
Yeah, council member, I'm Jessica Zank. I'm the Deputy Director for DOT, and I can take a stab at that one. I think Councilmember Perales, you said it correctly, which is that the parking fund revenues are down to an extent that we don't have a good projection of when they would be back up. This is a program that has been funded through an appropriation through the parking fund, but we do need the revenues to materialize in order to make good on that. And we know that there are many priorities that have typically depended on the parking fund, and we're not necessarily expecting or guaranteeing that this would be at the very top of the list when those revenues come back, whether it's vehicle abatement or some of the services for the unhoused in the downtown. There's a lot of other priorities that we expect council would have to discuss in the next budget before we would assume that there would be funding for this.
Okay, yeah, and I would agree. I mean, obviously, I don't think we know the full impact, but
right.
Certainly there's not going to be the revenue in there that was expected previously.
Right.
And I would agree that there's a lot of other needs that are going to fall as a higher priority than this. I'll move to approve the staff update.
Second.
Thank you. Any other, Councilmember Mahan?
Yeah, just very quickly and tactically, I'm just curious if there are best practices that we've learned from other cities or regions around how to reduce the risk of vandalism of the totems and just things that would, increase the long-term costs and reduce the benefits to the public.
So certainly really what we want to make sure of is whatever materials we use are going to be able to be cleaned very often. They're going to operate, which was part of the prototyping process of looking at, make sure the materials are going to be sustainable and durable. But then also just really making sure that we get that right so that we can actually, I guess the original sort of design we're thinking about is being able to interchange the actual map sheets and information within a 6-month period. So as businesses change, as things happen in our downtown, we can actually keep the map system updated so that in some places there are these permanent finishes that are very expensive to change and require a lot more labor and material costs to actually have them be basically permanent. And so really the idea is that we can actually switch out those components really easily, but the main structure is going to be very durable.
Great, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Carrasco. I think I see your hand.
My hand blends into that.
In your wall, in your paint.
Joshua tree in the background. So you probably know where maybe you have an idea of where I'm going to go with this. I think that wayfinding is great, and I'm glad that we're ironing out the kinks on this. My question, and I think I've talked to some of you about this, is wondering when it's going to get extended into some of the other areas in the city of San Jose. And of course, I'm going to make a pitch again for the east side of San Jose. And the reason why is, I'll say it again. You have a district that is rich with history. And again, history and iconic spots that I will again say for a very long time, it hasn't been talked about. It hasn't been recorded. It hasn't been memorialized. It hasn't been put on an elevated platform. And so when you don't do that, I think we miss a very significant opportunity, one, to highlight the diversity, but to highlight the history that has been a part of San Jose, but also an opportunity to bring in people who might be interested in history, who might be interested in the diversity, who might be interested in the best tacos that you're going to have in the city of San Jose, or who might be interested simply in finding, that mecca of culture. And whether it's Filipino or Vietnamese or Indian or Mexicano culture, it is here, here, here. You want authentic Tejano boots, you're gonna find it right here on the east side on Story Road. I can tell you exactly where it is. You want an authentic Tejana, you're gonna find it right here. You don't have to go, to Tijuana. You're gonna find it right here. So I'm just wondering, when do we do asset mapping on the east side of San Jose so that we can truly highlight? I go to, it was interesting. I went the other day, I think I've mentioned this before. I went for a hike up at oh my goodness, Councilmember Mahan,
Quicksilver.
Quicksilver. And when I get a little dyslexic, and sometimes I call it Quicksilver. And I went through Almaden Expressway, and they had the welcome to Almaden Valley, and we don't have anything like that in the east side of San Jose. It doesn't say welcome to Little Portugal, welcome to East San Jose, welcome to Little Mexico, welcome to, there's nothing. And I'm curious about that. I don't understand why such a significant part of our city of San Jose has no marker whatsoever. So that's one. The other is, if we don't think that it's significant enough to find its way through Wayfinder, then what do we need to do to build it? In other words, if we think that this isn't going to be attractive enough, maybe, then do we need to create trails that connect it? Do we need to create a scavenger hunt? Do we need to create a tour of murals? What do we need to do so that it becomes an attraction that pulls people in? Because if we think even in ourselves, in our own personal lives, remember I told you I have 3 teenagers and I have to be very clever when I want to go to certain areas. I need to make sure that they convince me that they want to go there. And so I've been raising children for the past 26 years, so I've figured things out. And so so I feed them the things that I think are going to be really interesting to them. And so I bring this up because what is it in our own personal lives that attract us to Paris? Is it the Louvre? Is it the food? Is it what is it? When we go to LA, is it the hiking trails? Is it the shopping? Is it the outlets? Is it the alleyways? What is it? And what is it that we think would bring people in here other than the core? I mean, we don't think that people just stay in the core, do we? And we don't think that San Jose is just a launching pad to go to Santa Cruz and San Francisco and, the outlets in Gilroy, is it? I mean, so what is it? And how do we make San Jose even better than we already know it is? And how do we take the assets that are San Jose? Because we have beautiful assets, wonderful assets. I've been here over 50 years. I've never left it because I love it. And I want my children to stay here and continue the legacy of my family. So what is it that we want San Jose to be known for. And I think that there is just an opportunity that we're really missing. And we have the best Vietnamese food. I've been all over, by the way, all over the world. I've never eaten the kind of Vietnamese food that we have here, right here in our own backyard. Mexican food, ditto. Indian food, by the way, double ditto. And so it's a challenge that I'm posing to all of you to see how we connect one district to the other. And I don't even like to say one district to the other, but rather how do we connect the rest of the city to each other so that people can truly appreciate the richness that it is. I'll tell you, when you think of events pre-COVID, MHP was bumping. It was every single day. There was something going on. You couldn't even get there to book a quinceañera. You had to know that your daughter was going to turn 15 3 years from now, so you could have a Saturday planned out because it was always booked. You knew that you were going to fall in love a few years from now and get married because you weren't going to be able to book a wedding there. I mean, it was booked all the time because it was so popular. The beautiful walk of altars was unlike any walk of altars that I've experienced in the US. Short of going into Latin America, there was nothing more majestic that I've experienced in the US. And Kim was there in one of those events. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I get chills just thinking about it, truly. How that community came together and honored its ancestors and its dead, And so, by the way, now that we've experienced so much loss, I can tell you that our walk of altars will be all that more significant in the years to come. And so how do you bring that to people who are going to be going through the same thing and know that this is where we come together? Anyway, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I think that's a great point.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Sure. Just to be very brief, they're excellent points. And I think that the core of this program is about making our city more discoverable and more legible, as you're suggesting, Councilmember Carrasco. And so that is absolutely a goal, as is the ability to extend the system over time, right? So one of the great things about working with VTA and working with MTC and others is that as Capital Light Rail and as the BART extension come online, we're working with them to make sure that this same wayfinding system is in fact adopted and expanded through those transit projects. Your point is very good. It's also the trails, it's also the streets, and it's also this ethos of kind of discovery and legibility within all aspects of the city. But those are definitely ways in which we're thinking about extending this exact system. And we're definitely continually open to suggestions. As Sal and Ryan mentioned, we'll continue to look for those affordable housing sustainable communities grants throughout the city that help us. Wayfinding is an eligible complement to those grant programs for the affordable housing. So thank you.
So it's now 4:18. We have one more item. I'd like to bring closure on this item as well, so we can move on to hear the economic update report. So Councilmember Mahan.
Yeah, and I'll be very, very brief. Agree with everything Councilmember Carrasco said. As a former public school teacher in Alum Rock Unified, love the community, the history, and absolutely think we should be investing in helping our residents and visitors discover that beautiful community. I did want to say, just for the record, just in case any members of the public did not understand the comment, I just want to note that the sign in Almaden, if you see it when you're going out to the great parks down here, was put together and funded by a couple of local service clubs. So I just wanted to be clear that that was not a decision to put public funds there and not somewhere else. But I think that doesn't mean we shouldn't put public funds into all of our neighborhoods, right? So just wanted to make sure that was clear. But thank you.
So just to put closure on this, I recently held a office hours with my District 9, and asked the question, what area needs a little TLC in District 9? And one of the comments I heard from 2 or 3 folks was, you need a gateway sign from Highway 17 on Camden that tells you you're in Cambrian. And actually, I tried to fund that a couple of years ago, and I got shot down for funding it. So maybe I need to go and get some private donations so that we can get someone to do a signage. Matt, you're going to have to show me how to do that.
Yeah, you got to talk to the Kiwanis Club or whatever they're.
Right, they're
Okay.
exactly. And signage is really important to all of us. The one thing I would leave you with is, how will those signs be accessible to those with disabilities? We need to make sure that if they're visually impaired or hearing impaired, that they have access to those wayfinding signs as well. So with that, let's vote.
Roscoe,
Aye.
Perales,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Esparza,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, you've been very patient. You're usually at the beginning of the agenda. We moved you at the end of the agenda. And now I'm wondering whether we should do that or not, but let's hear your economic news.
Thank you so much. Is my screen shared adequately so you guys can see it?
Yeah.
Good. I'm Elizabeth Handler, Public Information Manager. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. It's my pleasure to take you through a brief summary of some of the things that have been going on in the Economic Development Department over the past month. And so I will take you through the March newsletter. The first item is an example of the kind of support that we've been leveraging over the past 11 months to our small business community in order to help them with the information and the resources and the support that they need to deal with the impacts of the pandemic on them, and also the impacts of the county restrictions on their ability to do business. One of the ways that we found to be effective has been to host webinars with a host of partners across the community that are, in many cases, community-based organizations that provide support services, or they are the actual funding sources themselves, like the Small Business Administration. And we've supported more than 200 webinars of this sort to go out to the small business community. And we've done more than 25 of our own online workshops, many of them in multiple languages, not enough. We're still struggling to make the equity lens as focused as we can on our products, but it's very hard to do it. You don't want to hear how hard it is, but it's hard just to do timely information in 5 different languages. Until we all have people who speak all the languages in our departments working alongside us, it's a big strain on our multilingual staff members, and we really appreciate them. We have a YouTube channel where our videos can be seen of the workshops, and we're promoting that. And I think some of them are also on the city's YouTube channel as well. And we've actually been stepping up the cadence of our seminars because of the support that the community needs in applying for the help that is available. These applications, especially for federal grants and loans, are very complicated. And so our partners are helping us with the process of getting these folks as best positioned as they can be for the money that's available. One of the programs is the California Pandemic Relief Fund that was a grants program, which is extremely attractive because many of our lower income businesses are very reluctant to take on any kind of debt, as you can imagine. And it's not a culturally accepted thing to, oh, I need help, I'll go into debt. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. So the grants program is important. Unfortunately, it's had some problems with the applications process. It's not been very intuitive, and so we've been working very hard with also our hotline services, which are a phone number and an email address that is being managed in 5 languages again. And so we're doing a lot of work on that hotline and also to answer questions on how to get your application in and get it accepted. In the middle of all this, of course, there's still development going on, and it's actually a pretty interesting and positive picture. The projects underway, the major projects underway, include almost 24,000 residential units, 2.1 million square feet of commercial retail space, almost 34 million square feet of commercial office space, and close to 3,000 hotel rooms. And we haven't broken any ground on hotels yet, but there are things that are moving forward. And Topgolf started its construction back again after being on hold, and we're looking on getting that completed this spring. So that will be a very nice attraction added to the northern El Viso end of our valley. And also we've got some clean energy news that we're hosting a blog post from the Environmental Services Department talking about the groundbreaking or the ribbon cutting that just happened virtually for the cogeneration facility, adding to the economic advantages that we can offer our residential and business customers, as well as keeping our energy supplies as clean and as sustainable as possible. And finally, happiness happened on Valentine's Day. We've had a lot of fun working with the digital mapping feature of putting projections on downtown building facades. And we did it again for Valentine's Day. And we even have our own little arch that we've built now that has the San Jose Economic Development logo on it. Perfect for selfies. A lot of happy couples were taking their pictures under this for Valentine's Day. And in this, you will see there's a link to a KTVU news supplement on this this happy time in downtown. So we're hoping to keep the lights showing and activating our downtown area as best we can. So that's the end of the report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We have a couple members of the public who'd like to speak. Paul Soto.
Yes, thank you for that report. Here's your the pictures, Senora Carrasco, with the Mexicans, the art that was used in a minority business grant program. Then that's when we become, evident in the presentations. And so these are things that it's almost like every single meeting I come to, I'm educating white folks and Anglos of affluency and privilege on how offensive it is to be a Chicano in San Jose, having birth certificates in California to 1821, and have 100 years legacy here in San Jose. I mean, this is it's almost getting like surreal, like kind of like in a dream. Like we're constantly trying to educate the public on how insensitive and privileged and completely disconnected, apathetic, and indifferent you are to our lived experience. Now, the only time I can't even afford a meal downtown. It's impossible, because a meal downtown for me and two people is basically maybe 12 days of groceries for me. So that's impossible for me to do. And it's to hear like the economic development that's going on. Basically, our city is being marketed to people that don't live here. This 23,000 people that you cited in this meeting, I would like to know the numbers that you have, and I know that you have them. What is the demographic of that person that you have coming to live here? Because it's not native San Joseans that are going to live in those houses. It's not, because it costs $220,000 income to buy a home. So I'd really like to know the demographic of how many people do you have slated for those 23,000 number. Thank you.
Mr. Beekman.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm also trying to address the concepts of apathy today and community apathy and how the government, our local government, and state government and federal government really can have a part to help that process out. And, I hope my words can be of help today. For this item, I guess, a clarification also on a previous item to talk about the term airport through flyways and throughways. They want to build around airport flyways, I guess is the way I should say previous words. For this item, I guess the first thing is to thank, I haven't met this person before. I wanted to thank her for her words about a language interpretation for a certain issue. She's saying there can be ways to get interpreters for five different languages for, I guess, a newsletter, maybe possibly something like that. They're working on it. It's developing, but it's hard. And just to hear that they're working on 5 different versions of how a newsletter can work, that's great to hear. Thank you. Yeah, that's really good work. I'm hopeful by hearing that. And then the idea of a community energy at the waste treatment plant. I just hope we learn how to practice our good renewable ideas, and that renewable energy ideas can be a good subject matter for the next few years. And to use the term apathy, we don't grow apathetic in what will be a difficult next decade for ourselves. And we want to continue and work towards really good renewable ideas that are possible at this time and not shy away from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? If not, let's vote.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Perez,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Esparza,
Yes.
Foley.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes our meeting. We do have time for our open forum. Do any members of the public wish to speak on any topic? Mr. Beekman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I didn't know if my mic was on. Thank you. Yeah, to conclude, thanks for the meeting today. I'm thinking it's not only to not shy away from renewables in the future, but when dirty fuels present themselves, we'll be presenting ourselves in the next 5 to 10 years. We have the ability to say no. We have the ability to say, we're really trying to make the transition, and always look for the ways to work renewables to make that transition, even as the difficult times are approaching. That's the key. That's the key. So I'm going to be, that's what I'm going to be talking about for the next 6 months. So I wanted to, yeah, and also offer the idea that, the 20th century was a time of authoritarian government. And it was a time that government asserted itself as our authoritative figure in our lives. I hope the 21st century is a time that we learn to balance that power again towards the public more. And it's a more shared system. We can return to that. And that is where the real innovation is. And that's where open public policies with technology, and technology itself, interestingly, can have an important role in the 21st century to help develop that relationship. That's an incredible concept if you think about it. And I hope the mayor just doesn't settle for, oh, we have this great new kiosk monitoring system, or we have advanced facial recognition technology. I mean, those are practices of the national security state, basically. I'm talking about real open practices of democracy. And that's our future. And that's what can be innovative. And that's what open public policy offers. And it can invite everyone to the process. And there's already so many good examples that we work on and practice on of good practices in San Jose, that it can be inclusive to all parts of the community, even the parts that were at the January 6th Capitol building. How do we invite them in? It's with these good practices we're developing in San Jose. Let's think of the really good stuff and talk about that openly. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul Soto.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to be reading let's see. This is a letter that I wrote to Blanca Alvarado after seeing her in Spotlight. Gracias, Dona Alvarado, for being the protector of our community. There still exists so much ignorance and apathy in the hearts and minds of people who speak about social justice and equity with their lips, yet apprehensive and reticent when courage are required to make these terms reality. I am the son of campesinos de Salsipuedes. My father was raised in a tent on the grounds of what is now Guadalupe Church. So I am well acquainted with the consequences of systemic racism and the generational traumas that flow from them. My mother was abused and humiliated, violently attacked by white teachers in San Jose Unified School District. Her crime? Being Mexican and speaking her native language, Spanish, a right guaranteed her via the Constitution, but denied her in public schools. I attend every single city council meeting, and I thank las señoras Arenas, Esparza, Carrasco for being advocates, not politicians, when addressing the historical injustices that masquerades as that's just how things are. I hear your cariño and your fuerza, and take no mess attitude in advocacy in las señoras, as they too are protectors and community building feminine element on the dais. The standard you set is still echoed in the halls of power in them today, and for that I am grateful. I continue to advocate as you did from my humble position as a Chicano, son of the farm worker from Barrio Horseshoe. And as you began your advocacy on behalf of the Chicano, as the sun begins the day, as it rises in the east, I will finish my journey here on earth, advocating on the west, just as the sun completes its journey in the west. Gracias, Señora Alvarado, for your advocacy and legacy for this Chicano to follow. Viva las mujeres de la raza. Thank you.
With that, we have reached the conclusion of our meeting and we stand adjourned. See you all, well, many of you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.